Chapter 301. After all, he was just a sales manager. With such an ordinary status, he had no chance to meet Disheng's CEO in person. Hence, when Mu Yaja walked into the sales hall with Yun Shishir in his arms, he treated them as ordinary customers. However, it was not until his assistant introduced them. "Manager Li, this is our boss, the CEO of Disheng Financial Group, Mr. Mu." Only then did he feel greatly surprised. Xiangdi Wok was one of Disheng Financial Group's assets, but he could never have imagined that the mysterious CEO Mu was so young. Moreover, he was shockingly handsome. Who was the woman beside him? He had heard that the CEO had a fiancée. Could this be her? On second thought, the manager smiled, but he immediately understood what was going on. His attitude became even more respectful. "CEO Mu, what do you think of this? It's a large, luxurious, and well-furnished garden bungalow. It's 232 square meters and has a very quiet atmosphere." Mu Yaja pushed the brochure to Yun Shishir. "Do you like it?" Yun Shishir took a look at it and could not help but pick it up. "It's so beautiful, this beautiful lady, do you like this set?" Seeing that she was finally interested, the sales manager at the side asked with a gentle smile. "I like it, but it's too big. Don't you have a smaller one?" She had originally planned to move to another house. Her father had given her a bank card with a sum of money in it. However, at 200 square meters, it was a little too big. Usually, she, Yu, and her father lived together, so it was a little too spacious. The manager smiled embarrassedly. He. "This is already the smallest bungalow, what about the condominium?" Yun Shishir asked again. The manager wiped his sweat and helplessly said, "The first phase of the condominium was sold out 5 months after it opened. The second phase is still under development, you don't like it?" Yun Shishir was vexed. "I like it, this garden bungalow was her favorite retro palace design. It was elegant and beautiful. It was her dream home. This one, then." Mu Yaja's slender finger pointed at the brochure. "Good. Please wait for a moment, Chairman Mu." The manager put away the booklet and was about to leave. Yun Shishir was so shocked that she stopped him. "Wait. Miss, do you have any other orders?" The manager asked curiously. Yun Shishir said, "I haven't decided yet." "Consider what?" Mu Yaja's face darkened. When he asked her if she liked it, didn't she say yes? Where did all these considerations come from? Yun Shishir ignored him and asked the manager, "How much is this set?" The manager was stunned when he heard that. Mu Yaja frowned. "That's not for you to consider." "How is it not something I consider? What if I can't afford it?" The manager's lips twitched. This girl, wasn't she President Mu's little lover? But it didn't seem like it. Chairman Mu had never been so intimate with a woman before. If she wasn't his lover, why would he specially buy a bungalow to hide his mistress? Shimao Champagne Lake and a huge villa were all under his name. Why would he need to specially buy a bungalow? "Woman, are you stupid?" Mu Yaja glanced at her unhappily. "I don't need you to buy it for me. I'll buy it myself." Chapter 302. Mu Yaja gazed deeply at her. Seeing how stubborn she was and how she was glaring at him, it was obvious that she was very dissatisfied with his act of giving her money. Suddenly, he smiled deeply and sank into the sofa casually. He raised his hand lazily and motioned for the manager to quote the price. "Hello, this one is 45 million. Yun Shishir was petrified. Mu Yaja enjoyed her shocked expression. Seeing that she was stunned for a long time, he couldn't help but mock her. "What? Didn't you say that you wanted to buy it yourself?" She was speechless. She thought that a villa would cost tens of millions and a garden bungalow wouldn't be that expensive. Yun Shishir bit her lips and felt depressed. "Why aren't you being stubborn anymore?" Mu Yaja asked coldly. He looked up and motioned for the manager to leave immediately. The procedures to get the property certificate weren't complicated. Everything was done so quickly that it was unreasonable. Therefore, when the manager handed the new property certificate to Yun Shishir, she still couldn't come back to her senses. Mu Yaja, who was standing at the side, leaned forward slightly to admire her dumbfounded expression. His heart was filled with joy. Are you touched? You don't have to sleep in the slums anymore. Why did you give me this bungalow? Was this man going to use this to sign an unfair contract with her again? Mu Yaja saw her wary expression and couldn't help but mock her. Do you want me to watch my son sleep in a pigsty? That's not a pigsty. Yun Shishir emphasized again. Mu Yaja glanced at her and didn't say anything else. To him, that kind of place was no different from a pigsty. It was small and unsafe. There were dozens of residents living in that building. It might even be more than that. It was difficult to avoid miscellaneous people. In addition, the security was not in place, so anyone could come and go as they pleased. How could he allow his woman and son to live in such a foul place? However, at that moment, the woman in front of him looked stubborn and carefully protected her pitiful self-esteem in front of him. For some reason, he didn't say anything else. He said indifferently, "This is a gift." Yun Shishir's expression froze. That bowl of noodles as a gift. Yun Shishir was a little confused. What did he mean? A bowl of clear soup in exchange for a luxurious mansion? In this way, her bowl of noodles was worth tens of millions? Heavens, this was undoubtedly like winning the lottery, right? So, if I make a few more bowls of noodles for you, will you give me a few more mansions? Mu Yaja looked at her speechlessly. Yun Shishir looked at him provocatively. Without a doubt, if he agreed, she would make noodles for him every day. They had to eat him dry. His phone's ringtone interrupted the strange silence in a timely manner. Mu Yaja originally wanted to cut off the call, but when he saw the screen, his expression turned serious. He immediately walked to the side and picked up the phone, replying in a deep voice, "Grandpa." On the phone, the old master's voice was gloomy and angry, but he tried to control himself. You finally know how to answer the phone. If I don't call you, you won't know where you are. Seeing that he was silent, the old master became even more furious. Do you still know how to go home? Wanru called you so many times, why didn't you answer? Do you still see her as your wife and me as your grandfather? Chapter 303. Grandpa, I'm not married to her yet, Mu Yaja said solemnly. What do you mean by that? So what if you're not married? She's your fiancée and your future wife. Are you trying to drive me to my grave? Grandpa Mu was infuriated. He coughed violently and cursed, "You're trying to make me angry." Grandpa, on the other end, Mu Xing bellowed in exasperation, "Cut the crap. I'll give you 20 minutes. Come back immediately." Do, the call was hung up. Mu Yaja's expression turned cold and gloomy in an instant. When Yun Tianyu woke up, the sun was already high in the sky. When he opened his eyes, he realized that he had been transferred to a different ward. It was even a special ward. Luxurious decorations, elegant style, and excellent equipment. A ward was actually created with a magnificent atmosphere. It had a living room, a study room, and a bathroom. His eyes swept across the room and saw Yun Yecheng lying on the bed with his clothes on. He was snoring lightly and heavily with a tired face. He had not slept for 2 days and 2 nights, he was already exhausted. Why is it him? Yun Tianyu frowned slightly, but he did not care too much about it and did not wake him up. He did not have much hatred for Yun Yecheng. He just felt that this man was too incompetent for causing his mother to suffer so much. In his heart, a man who caused his mother to suffer was useless. Did he need to say all sorts of excuses for not being able to protect someone? They were all excuses. If his mother chose to forgive him, he would also choose to let it go. Grumble, Yu rubbed his belly. He was a little hungry, so he got out of bed and shuffled to the living room in his slippers. Li Hanlin was sitting on the sofa. When he saw him coming out, he immediately stood up and greeted respectfully, Director Yun, Why are you here? Grumble. Before he could finish his sentence, his stomach growled again. Li Hanlin looked at him with a smile in his eyes. Hungry? Yun Tianyu looked away in embarrassment, feeling that his smile was a little dazzling. Did you bring food? Yes. I knew that you would be hungry when you woke up, so I brought your favorite Fuji bento. Li Hanlin said as he took out a bento and placed it on the table. Who asked me to be the special assistant of the 24 filial piety? Where's my mommy? When I came earlier, she was already gone. Nodding his head, he sat on the sofa and gracefully finished his lunch. Li Hanlin hurriedly took out a stack of board documents and passed them to him. Yu took the documents and flipped through them one by one. These documents were all proposals from the board meeting and would be submitted to him for final approval. Those who agreed would sign their names, and the rest would be dismissed. As he flipped through the documents, he coldly remarked, "These old good-for-nothings are getting more and more useless as they get older." The more he read, the more his brows furrowed. Abruptly, he threw the document in his hand into the air. The official documents were scattered all over the ground, like snowflakes drifting down. He stood up expressionlessly, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and coldly said, "Since they're so useless, why don't they just lie in their coffins? I'll kindly burn a pile of paper money for them." Li Hanlin was silent. How black-bellied, Li Hanlin silently criticized him in his heart. This was his usual style, though. Chapter 304. Yun Tianyu snorted. Humph. You're trying so hard to replace me. You should know your place first. Li Hanlin was shocked and hurriedly said, "No one in the company can replace Director Yun's position." That's for sure. Yun Tianyu turned to look at him intently. Without me, the company is nothing but a wasteland. Li Hanlin was shocked. Although his words were calm, they hit a sharp edge and were extraordinarily bold. If someone else were to say this, they would be considered arrogant. But when it came from his mouth, it was incomparably convincing. Then, the official documents, reject them all. Understood. Li Hanlin arranged the documents and suddenly stood up. Director Yun, are you willing to meet the person outside? Who? Li Qin. He opened the door and saw Li Qin standing uneasily outside. He did not know how long she had been waiting. Her face lit up with joy when she saw the door open, but her heart plummeted at the sight of Yun Tianyu walking out with a cold face. Why are you here? Yun Tianyu glanced at her coldly, mocking her for her ridiculousness. This is my ward, why can't it be me? Li Qin was speechless for a moment, but when she realized that this was not the time to bicker with him, she hurriedly asked, "Where's your mommy? I want to see her." Yun Tianyu sneered, not taking her seriously at all. Who are you? Is my mommy someone you can meet whenever you want? Li Qin's face turned red at his words and she bellowed in exasperation, "You child, why are you so stubborn? How can you talk to your elders like that? *TCH like you is only fit to talk to me like that. You," she raised her hand in anger and swung it toward his little face. It was just like how she had insulted him in the Yun family. Yun Tianyu only raised his head to look at her coldly. Her palm swung toward him with a swift and fierce gust of wind. Her eyes did not even blink as they emitted a trace of coldness. Li Hanlin's face darkened. He quickly blocked her palm, grabbed her wrist, and pushed her to the ground. She landed on her but as if she was going to fall apart. Li Hanlin's strength was not small. In front of him, she did not have the strength to fight back at all. She was in so much pain that she cried out. Yun Tianyu casually walked up to her and looked down at her from above. His lips curled into a mocking and cold smile. Li Qin, why are you looking for my mommy? Li Qin grimaced in pain. Hearing his question, she sneered disdainfully, "If there's anything, I have to discuss it with your mommy. I won't tell you. What would a child like you know?" Hee hee. Yun Tianyu, you're getting more and more impudent. I'm your elder, I don't want to listen to nonsense. Yun Tianyu impatiently interrupted her. Since you want my mommy to help you, why don't you give me a reason for her to help you? Li Qin's expression changed, and a trace of bitterness appeared on her face. At least it's on account of the 20 years of mother-daughter relationship between me and her. Chapter 305. Friendship. What a mother-daughter relationship. Was it the friendship of 20 years of oppression and humiliation? Was it the friendship of being ostracized by him? He still could not forget the dark and heavy memories of his childhood. If that was the so-called affection. Yun Tianyu let out a lazy laugh. Alright, on account of our friendship. You, which ward? She did not know if it was Yu Yu's extraordinary aura or something else, but she actually answered hesitantly, 502, let's go. Yun Tianyu turned and ordered. Li Hanlin immediately followed his footsteps. He couldn't wait to see how miserable Li Qin and Yun Na were right now. Li Hanlin looked back at Li Qin with pity and mourned for her in his heart for a few seconds. Of all people to offend, she had to offend a little devil like Yun Tianyu. She would not even know how she died. It was no wonder that Li Qin had shamelessly come here. Now, she was forced into a corner and had no other way out. Yun Tianyu walked to the door of the ward and saw a group of onlookers crowding around it. He was not in a hurry to enter. Instead, he stood at the door and looked into the ward through the window. At one glance, he saw Yun Na hiding in a corner, covering her face and howling in pain. Her voice was hoarse and broken. The wound on her face was originally infected and suppurated. Now that someone had pulled it, the bandages on her face were scattered messily. Her face was stained with blood, and even her hospital gown was dirty. At this moment, Li Dongqiang stood in front of the hospital bed and kicked her body from time to time. He opened his mouth and scolded, I told you to return the money, but you didn't listen to me, did you? Do you really think that I can't do anything to you just because you're hiding in the hospital? B*TCH. Brother Chang, I don't have money. I really don't have money. No money. I think you don't want to return it. If you don't want to, I'll take out your photos for others to admire. Who knows, maybe they can be sold for a good price. He suddenly took out a stack of photos in his hand. It was unknown what kind of unsightly content was in the photos. When Yun Na saw it, she immediately turned pale with fright. She immediately knelt down and reached out to snatch it. No, when Li Dongqiang saw her, he got angry and kicked her to the corner of the wall. Yun Na's head slammed into the wall, and blood immediately flowed out of her head. She coughed out a mouthful of blood. How disgusting, muttered Yun Tianyu coldly. Li Qin also rushed over. However, when she stood at the door and saw the messy ward, she froze on the spot and did not dare to step in. She didn't dare. She didn't have the guts. Li Dongqiang was a well-known hooligan in this area. It was not that they had not seen his methods before. He was vicious and merciless. She did not know how he managed to find his way to the hospital. As soon as he stepped into the ward, he threw Yun Na onto the ground with a slap. Li Qin was scared out of her wits by the commotion. Knowing that the debt collectors had come knocking on her door, she hurriedly ran out of the ward, hoping to find Yun Yecheng and Yun Shishir to settle this matter. Both Yun Yecheng and Yun Shishir were rich. If she were to ask them for money and return it, they wouldn't be so heartless as to leave her in the lurch. However, now, looking at her daughter, who was in such a miserable state, crying and begging for mercy with a bloody face, she could not move her feet. She was afraid that she would be implicated if she went in. She could not take a beating. Chapter 306. Li Dongqiang was not afraid at all. At this moment, he was in public. The other patients and their family members in the ward had already fled the ward in fear. Li Dongqiang was not a busybody. He was only here to find Yun Na to repay the debt he owed. He would not cause trouble for other unrelated people. Li Qin, who was standing at the door, was so frightened that her legs turned to jelly. She was so frightened that she wanted to cry but did not dare to make a sound. She could only hide at the side and panic. Yun Tianyu looked at her coldly. In the face of disaster, the mother-daughter relationship was just this. This was a debt she had caused, so she had to bear it herself. Misfortune came with evil, the wheel of fortune had turned. With that thought in mind, he wanted to leave. However, just as he took a step, he heard Yun Na's anguished screams from the ward. I really don't have money. Brother Chang, my sister has money. She has money, you can ask her for it. I'm her sister, her only sister. She'll definitely help me pay it back. Yun Tianyu stopped in his tracks. The corners of his eyes were instantly dyed with cold anger. His body emitted a dangerous and frightening aura. He turned his head and looked into the ward. Yun Na was crying bitterly as she hugged Li Dongxiang's trouser leg. She seemed to be clutching at the last straw as she said with reddened eyes, my sister has money. You can ask her for it, she'll definitely help me pay it back. She was the one who helped me pay the previous debt. Yun Tianyu was startled and clenched his fists tightly. Mommy helped her pay the debt. When, he actually did not know. Yun Na, haven't I made myself clear to you that day? Didn't you make me suffer enough last time? You said that your sister was pure, lovely, and a stunner. You even said that you wanted to give her to me to pay off your debt. What happened in the end, though? Not only was your sister not a virgin, but she also had an illegitimate child. More importantly, she had a sugar daddy behind her. I didn't even touch her, and I was almost killed. Do you think I'll fall for your trick again this time? Find trouble with her? Even if you have the guts, I won't dare to. You should be the one asking. I don't dare to provoke her again. Yun Tianyu's brows knitted tightly, and his face turned pale in an instant. Don't force me, Brother Chang. Yun Na cried helplessly. At that time, I really didn't know what kind of sugar daddy was taking care of her. You didn't know, but now you know. Damn it, I've never seen someone as heartless as you. Your elder sister has always doted on you. That day, I sent someone to ask her to collect the debt. From her tone, it seems like this isn't the first time she's cleaned up your mess. If I hadn't threatened her with her son, she wouldn't have cared about you. Suddenly, a child's tender voice came from the door. When did this happen? Li Dongxiang looked back and saw Yun Tianyu standing at the door with a pale face. His beautiful eyes were as deep and empty as a bottomless abyss. Where did this little baby come from? Li Dongxiang frowned and scolded. You don't need to know who I am. Explain what you said just now. Yun Tianyu was not in the mood to care about his rude words. His tone was gloomy and cold, but his voice was unique to a child's, yet it was tinged with a chilling and dangerous aura. Li Dongxiang was stunned. Although the child in front of him looked no more than 6 or 7 years old, he was shockingly mature. His powerful aura almost overshadowed his sharpness. In front of a little boy, he actually lost the limelight. Chapter 307. What did you say? Why should I explain it to you? Li Dongxiang raised his head to look at the crowd outside the door and demanded fiercely, whose child ran out? Quickly take him away. The crowd dispersed in fright. Yun Tianyu coldly said, aren't you here to collect a debt? Explain it clearly, and I'll pay for her. You're just a child, where did you get the money? I have it. Li Hanlin, who was behind him, stepped forward with a smile. Li Dongxiang was even more confused now. Seeing this, Yun Na seemed to see the light of hope. She immediately pointed at Yun Tianyu and said, He is my sister's son. Oh. Is that Yun Shishir your mommy? You don't have to care so much. I'm just asking you how much does she owe you? Yun Tianyu asked coldly. He did not look at Yun Na, as if he was afraid of dirtying his eyes with just one look, 500,000 yuan. Yun Tianyu tilted his head and said in a low voice, agently, yes. Li Hanlin immediately took out a stack of checks from his briefcase, wrote a string of numbers on it, signed it, and flashed it to Li Dongxiang. 1 million yuan. Li Dongqiang's eyes widened. Oh, this child is not simple. Yun Na watched with tears in her eyes until Li Hanlin flashed the amount on the check. Her face lit up with hope, but it was soon followed by disbelief. Who was this man in a suit? One look and one could tell that he was an elite, so why was he so respectful toward Yun Tianyu? Li Qin, who was standing at the door, was also dumbfounded. Who exactly was this man? How could he casually write a check for 1,000,000 yuan? What was more shocking was that this man was submissive and obedient to Yun Tianyu, a child. What was the relationship between these two? Li Qin could not figure it out. Li Dongqiang smiled wickedly and went forward to take the check. Li Hanlin's hand, which was holding the check, moved slightly, and he caught nothing but air. Are you playing with me? Li Dongqiang was slightly annoyed. Yun Tianyu expressionlessly said, you haven't explained what you meant by your words earlier. Li Dongqiang smiled and grabbed Yun Na's collar. He patted her bleeding cheek and said, she's your mommy's sister, right? Ha, he took drugs and gambled outside and owed me a huge debt. But this bitch doesn't have any money. I threatened her and told her that I would go to her house to collect the debt. She was scared silly. Guess what she said? Li Dongqiang was a hoodlum, so his words were naturally sinister. His face was ferocious, and he looked like a ruffian. Yun Tianyu hummed and waited for him to continue. She said that she wants to use her sister to repay her debt. Li Dongqiang said slowly. Yun Tianyu's face instantly changed. It was as dark as ink. His pair of bright eyes immediately seemed to be covered by a dark haze, and a thick vicious aura constantly surged in his eyes. Go on, he ordered. Li Dongqiang was stunned. He was a little displeased. A child was talking to him with such a condescending attitude. However, he didn't think too much about it and continued speaking. She said that her older sister was so beautiful and refined. When I heard it, my heart itched. Get to the point. Yun Tianyu was a little impatient. D*mn, you little b** starred, Li Dongqiang was furious. Chapter 308. Li Dongqiang swallowed his saliva and could only continue. She made an agreement with me. She would send her lovely sister here to accompany me for a few nights, and that debt would be written off. Hearing this, Yun Tianyu remained silent for a long time. He only stared at Yun Na with a gloomy expression. His expression was so cold that it was frightening. She didn't succeed in the end, though. In the end, she was kidnapped by the Mu family. The Mu family? Li Hanlin was startled. Mu Yaja. He. Yun Tianyu suddenly let out a few desolate chuckles. His slightly narrowed eyes suddenly opened and stared fixedly at Yun Na. His gaze was so deep that it seemed to pierce a hole in her body. So, that's how it is. He. Yun Tianyu held his forehead with his hand. His desolate laughter echoed in the room, making one's hair stand on end. Yun Na had never seen this side of Yun Tianyu before. In front of Yun Shishir, he had always been obedient and adorable. Now, however, he tore apart all his pretense and revealed himself to be cold and deep. It was as if even his surroundings were filled with a frightening aura of hostility. Especially his deep eyes, which flashed with a hint of madness and ruthlessness. You. What are you laughing at? He. Yun Tianyu shrugged his shoulders and laughed even more wantonly. He closed his eyes and those dark memories squeezed into his thoughts. In the scene, Yun Na pressed him onto the bed and ruthlessly slapped his body one after another. She pulled his ears and said in a sinister voice over and over again, little b** starred, go ahead and cry. Go ahead and make a fuss. Your mommy isn't at home right now. Let's see who's going to help you. Who will protect you? Those dusty memories, under the stimulation, broke out of their cage and flashed before his eyes like a merry-go-round. He, his slightly trembling laughter contained the pain of his memories being torn apart. Li Dongqiang shook his head and sighed. I didn't expect you to be willing to pay for her debt. Repaying evil with good, isn't it? She harmed your mommy, don't you hate her? Hate? Yun Tianyu opened his eyes abruptly. There was a flash of murderous intent in his eyes. How could he not hate her? Overflowing hatred. Sigh, I originally wanted to throw her into the pond to feed the fish. Initially, when he heard that she was going to enter the entertainment industry as a celebrity, he even took a bunch of pornographic photos of her to blackmail her. Now that she was disfigured, her acting career had come to an end. Since you're paying for her debt, I'll give you these photos. Li Dongxiang passed the photo to Yun Tianyu and reached for Li Hanlin's check again. Li Hanlin coldly grabbed his wrist, rendering him unable to move. Why, are you going back on your word? Did I say that I'll repay her debt? Yun Tianyu's voice was cold and mocking. Yun Na's heart leaped to her throat again. She thought that she was saved, so why was Yun Tianyu going back on his word? Could it be that the check was fake? Did he not mean what he said just now? His heart was like a roller coaster, hanging high for a moment, then falling to the bottom of the valley. Then what you said just now, Yun Tianyu coldly retorted, she owes you so much money, yet you're throwing her into the pond. How pitiful is that? Poor mommy, all the grievances she had suffered all these years were written off so easily. Chapter 309. Throwing her into the pond like this is too merciful. He suddenly threw the photo in his hand into the air and sneered. Chop her up and feed her to the sharks. Her death is not worth pitying. His voice was clearly so innocent, but it was now very deep and penetrating. It was as cold and eerie as the tide. Every word seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth, and it was inexplicably hair-raising. Yun Na was so shocked that she hid behind Li Dongxiang in fright. In her heart, Yun Tianyu was no less terrifying than Li Dongxiang, who had been in the underworld for decades. In fact, he might even be more terrifying. Li Qin, who was at the door, was so frightened that she forgot to breathe. At this moment, no one considered that Yun Tianyu was only 6 years old. His words were probably just a child's babble. They only saw the bone-chilling expression on his young face. Cold and hateful, he looked at Yun Na as if she were something filthy. Little kid. Are you joking? Li Dongxiang laughed awkwardly for a while. How could he be so ruthless at such a young age? It was indeed scary. Joking? Yun Tianyu said gravely. My time is precious. Why would I joke with you? Then, Li Dongxiang's throat was dry. He licked his lips. Even he could not help but respect this 6-year-old boy. You mean, I'll give you the money. You deal with the person. Do you understand? Li Dongxiang was still in disbelief. He looked suspiciously at Li Hanlin, who was beside him, only to see the latter looking down at the little lad with a frown. His eyes were filled with indescribable heartache and complexity. Agent Li, you. Li Hanlin suddenly squatted in front of him and held his shoulders with a worried look. Don't be blinded by hatred. Yun Tianyu did not seem to hear his advice and coldly said, give him the money. He did not want to deal with this kind of person personally. He was afraid that it would dirty his hands. Li Hanlin's expression was complicated. I want you to give him money. Do you understand? Yun Tianyu gripped his wrist with a pale face. His pair of black eyes stared straight ahead. Li Hanlin stared at Li Dongxiang's pale face and frowned. Finally, he stood up and handed the check to Li Dongxiang. Yun Na and Li Qin froze on the spot as if they were struck by lightning. Li Dongxiang seemed to be familiar with this kind of thing. He verified the authenticity of the check and confirmed that it was genuine. Once again, he felt incredulous. This child was not simple at all. At such a young age, he already had a boldness that ordinary adult men couldn't match, and even wealth. Even though he still couldn't figure out his identity, knowing too much might not be a good thing for him. All right, I'll take that person away. When the time comes, I'll take some photos for you to enjoy. Just as Li Dongxiang finished speaking, Yun Na, who was at the side, wailed and crawled to Yun Tianyu's side. Hugging his frail body, she begged for mercy. Why you, it's Auntie's fault. It's Auntie's fault. Auntie was blind in the past. It's Auntie's fault. Auntie swears that I won't bully you or your mommy anymore. Yun Tianyu looked straight ahead as if he did not hear her. He did not even look at her. Chapter 310. How ironic. In the past, whenever Yun Na saw him, she would look at him with cold disdain and call him a little b*****. Now, she was kneeling beside him, kowtowing and begging for mercy. Li Hanlin, who was behind him, bent over and flung her hand away from his shoulder. Li Qin, too, crawled to Yun Tianyu's feet on all fours. Tears streamed down her face as she kowtowed and admitted her mistake. You don't really want to kill us, do you? At least, for the sake of your grandfather, please let us live. You're hiring a hitman. It's illegal and unacceptable. Oh. Hiring a hitman. Yun Tianyu muttered to himself nonchalantly and smiled slyly. Did anyone hear that? There was dead silence in the room. Who would believe a 6-year-old child's words? A 6-year-old child hiring a hitman to kill someone was simply a fantasy. In the suffocating silence, Yun Na kowtowed heavily on the floor and said hoarsely, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm wrong, I know I'm wrong. She wailed heartbreakingly as she reached out to hug Yun Tianyu. Yun Tianyu did not even look at her and coldly waved her hand away. Don't touch me, it's dirty. Woo. You. Yun Na's teary eyes were filled with despair and sorrow. Unforgivable, Yun Tianyu's shoulders trembled slightly. He turned around and coldly said, Li Qin, 6 years ago, you caused my mommy to become a single mother at the age of 18. She sacrificed herself for the Yun family, but how did you treat her? Abruptly, he enunciated each word clearly. Li Qin, I've long wanted to get rid of you. Yun Na sobbed and begged, give us another chance. Yun Tianyu said, it's not that I didn't give you a chance, you didn't cherish it. Li Qin was stunned. I became so strong in order to protect my mommy. You hurt my mommy again and again, yet you want me to forgive you? Impossible. With that, he turned and walked out of the ward. Li Dongqiang's men soon arrived. Li Qin cried behind him, you can't be that cruel, right? Yun Tianyu ignored her and quickly left the ward. Behind him were Li Qin and Yun Na's despairing faces. Back in the ward, he closed the door behind him. Yun Tianyu stood at the doorway, looking cold and ruthless. When Li Hanlin saw this, his heart ached and he hugged him tightly. Her weak body seemed to be unable to withstand a single blow. Although he wasn't his child, after a year of master-servant relationship, he had already treated him as half a family member. After witnessing his ruthless means in the business world, he was in awe of this child from the bottom of his heart. However, in front of Yun Shishir, he looked innocent and cute. When he looked at Yun Shishir, his eyes were pure and untainted. This purity was without any pretense, as if this was how he should be. However, hatred had dyed this purity black. He originally thought that it was because of his superb acting skills that he was able to switch between the front and the back. But now, it seemed that he no longer thought so. What kind of childhood did this child have that he could do such a cruel thing? Cruel, to a child, it was especially cruel. He did not know how dark his childhood was to be able to gnash his teeth in hatred to kill someone. Chapter 311. At the Mu residence. Mu Yaja parked his car in the garage and walked into the living room. Both Mu Sheng and Mu Wanru were there. Grandpa Mu sat in the armchair with a solemn expression. Mu Wanru, who was kneeling beside him, was carefully massaging his legs and massaging them from time to time. Grandpa Mu's face turned ashen when he saw Mu Yaja. He snorted coldly. You finally know how to come home. Grandpa. Mu Yaja greeted him. Mu Wanru looked at him. She opened her mouth a few times but did not say anything. Grandpa Mu slammed the table. He was obviously furious. Where have you been for the past 2 days? You still know about this house? I was busy. Busy? What were you busy with? You were busy with a woman's bed. Grandpa Mu was furious. Mu Wanru immediately patted his chest that was heaving up and down due to his anger. She said gently, Grandpa, don't be angry. Don't hurt your body. He must be busy with the company's affairs. That's why. Humph. He's busy. Wanru, you're always thinking of him, but has he ever thought of you? Mu Wanru's face stiffened. Her eyes were filled with grievance. The atmosphere in the living room was extremely tense. It was as if a storm was brewing. Mu Yaja sat on the sofa and brewed a cup of tea. He looked calm as if he did not care about Grandpa Mu's anger. Grandpa Mu was furious when he saw Mu Siju's nonchalant attitude. Who did you give the bungalow at Xiangdi Walk to? Grandpa Mu narrowed his eyes. His face was gloomy. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows. It was obvious that his every move in the past few days was being monitored. Grandpa Mu soon heard about what he had done 15 minutes ago. This realization made him somewhat displeased. Hence, he remained silent in the face of Grandpa Mu's interrogation. Not talking. Seeing that Mu Yaja was silent, he sat up straight and threw a file in front of Mu Yaja. He asked coldly, at least explain this matter clearly. Mu Yaja expressionlessly took out a stack of documents and a few photos from the folder and glanced at them coldly. Sure enough, Grandpa Mu had sent someone to investigate Yun Tianyu. Mu Wanru also walked over curiously and picked up the photos. Her expression froze and her heart sank. She did not know that he was investigating Yun Tianyu. He had no idea. Mu Wanru secretly gritted her teeth. The situation did not develop as she had expected. If Mu Sheng were to investigate Yun Tianyu, he would definitely find out about Yun Shishir. At that time, if they found out about the incident from more than 10 years ago, Mu Wanru's heart was suddenly in her throat and her breathing stopped. Mu Sheng was in a fit of anger, so he did not notice her abnormality. He only asked coldly, have you investigated this child's matter clearly? Mu Yaja's deep gaze fell on Mu Wanru, who was unsettled, and he slowly answered, no. I think this child is about 6 or 7 years old. When did this happen? He angrily said, I don't care how this child came about. Anyway, the Mu family's bloodline can't be outside. Bring him back. Mu Wanru returned to her senses and quickly said, Grandpa, let's put this matter aside for now. We haven't investigated the matter clearly. Isn't it too hasty to make such a decision? Chapter 312. Mu Wanru's heart skipped a beat when she heard that. Mu Yaja remained silent. Seeing that, Grandpa Mu bellowed, give me an explanation for this matter as soon as possible. You summoned me back just for this matter. Mu Yaja frowned. It was not that he had never thought of letting you return to the Mu family. However, now was not the time. He already had solid evidence in his hands, but he was still a little short of it. Of course not. Grandpa Mu calmed his anger and said in a low voice, arrange your marriage with Wanru as soon as possible. Mu Wanru's face lit up with joy when she heard that. She pretended to be shy and asked, Grandpa, why so sudden, marriage? Mu Yaja's eyes twitched dangerously. Why? If you don't arrange it as soon as possible, how long do you want to delay it? She's your fiancé and your childhood sweetheart. Now that both of you are of age, your marriage naturally can't be delayed any longer. Otherwise, I won't feel at ease even if it's delayed for a moment. Grandpa Mu slammed his walking stick on the floor as he yelled in annoyance. Mu Wanru's heart skipped a beat when she saw Mu Yaja's cold face. She hugged Grandpa Mu's shoulders aggrievedly and said, Grandpa, we're not ready yet, what do you need to prepare for a marriage? Both of you are already engaged. It's inevitable that the public will be suspicious of you if you delay the wedding. Besides, Wanru, it's not that I want to nag at you. Even if Yaja doesn't care, you should do more. Are you willing to watch your man be seduced by another woman? Grandpa Mu sized up Mu Yaja as he said that. His voice instantly turned gloomy. Wanru has been with you for so many years. I won't allow you to let her down. Arrange the marriage as soon as possible, understand? Mu Yaja remained silent for a while. Suddenly, his lips curled into a deep smile. I understand, Grandpa. That's good. His answer was like a tranquilizer. Grandpa Mu was finally relieved. Mu Wanru, who was standing at the side, was also overjoyed. She thought that Mu Yaja would try his best to reject the marriage, but he actually agreed to it. Wanru, both of you must be well. Grandpa Mu was overjoyed as he patted the back of her hand gently with a kind look on his face. She reservedly replied, Thank you, Grandpa. Grandpa, I'm tired. I'm going back to my room first. Mu Yaja expressionlessly said that and went upstairs. Grandpa Mu immediately signaled to Mu Wanru with his eyes, and the latter immediately understood. Lifting her skirt, she followed Mu Yaja into the bedroom. Once they were, he, Unrao and Wanru. And Wanru saw this. Mu's when when. Then, she immediately went forward to help him change his clothes. The man glanced at her from the corner of his eye. His expression was distant as he dodged her actions. Mu Wanru froze on the spot as if she had been petrified. His indifference caused her to be at a loss of what to do. She felt uneasy. After pondering for a while, she finally mustered her courage to speak. You seem to be so cold to me recently. Why? Am I? Mu Yaja did not look at her. His eyes were fixed on the floor-to-ceiling window. He casually pulled his collar and took off his shirt. His tone was cold. Mu Wanru's heart tightened. She felt wronged. Of course, you're always cold to me. Why? Haven't I always been like this? His leisurely attitude made her feel even more embarrassed. However, she had no other choice. She could not choose to retreat. There was no way out for her. Chapter 313. Grandpa Mu was whispering in her ear. If the man was not proactive enough, as a woman, she should let go of her modesty. She was proud of her modesty. She used to be so reserved too. However, Mu Yaja was like a proud and free wind, unpredictable. She did not even know how to talk to him to attract his attention. He had been extremely cold to her since they were young. On one hand, it should be his resistance to this marriage. On the other hand, maybe he was not interested in her at all. Mu Wanru clenched her fists and slowly took a step forward. Why don't you touch me? Mu Yaja opened his eyes slightly, his gaze was cold but he did not say a word. She watched as the man casually pulled off his tie and took off his shirt. His elegant and calm expression made it seem as if she didn't exist. Mu Wanru's face was full of embarrassment. Seeing that he was about to enter the bathroom, she immediately took a step forward nervously and forced a smile. Is it because I'm not attractive to you? Or is it because I'm not proactive enough? She paused and hurriedly said, I can take the initiative as long as you like it. Mu Yaja turned his face away impatiently. Bang! What responded to her was the sound of the bathroom door closing. Click. The door was locked. Mu Wanru's legs went soft and she collapsed on the ground as if she had collapsed. She rubbed her hair in annoyance and felt wronged. She wanted to cry but no tears came out. This man had always been so cold. It was the same for everyone. When they were young, Mu Yaja was not close to her. At first, to her who had just stepped into the Mu family, this young man exuded a heart-palpitating coldness and always avoided anyone who wanted to get close to him. She had no choice but to accept this. For so long, Mu Yaja had never had a woman by his side, which made her feel more at ease. But why did he have to treat that Yunshishir? What was so good about that Yunshishir? Why did this man who had always been cold take her to heart? Thinking of this, Mu Wanru's heart was filled with resentment. No, he had to act quickly. That Alan was incompetent. She had to find another way to get rid of Yunshishir as soon as possible. Voila, the bathroom door opened. Mu Yaja walked out of the bathroom in a brocade bathrobe. His tall figure and slightly open collar revealed his sexy and well-defined muscles. She looked even more graceful and luxurious. His slightly damp hair was slightly messy, but it didn't diminish his handsomeness at all. Instead, it made him even more handsome and charming. Seeing that she was still there, Mu Yaja's eyes flashed with disgust. Why haven't you left? Mu Wanru said cautiously, Grandpa asked me to sleep in your room tonight. Sleep with me? The man asked coldly. He lit a cigarette and took a deep puff. He rarely smoked, unless it was an important social event or when he was extremely frustrated, then he would light up a cigarette. It could be seen that he was not in a good mood tonight. Mu Wanru stubbornly did not move an inch. I know you might not be ready, and I don't want to be so fast. But Grandpa's health is not good, so I can only follow his wishes. He instructed me to do this. I don't want to anger him, I'm afraid he'll hurt his body. Mu Yaja narrowed his handsome eyes and looked at her. She actually came up with such a dignified reason, ridiculous. You want me, okay? Chapter 314. Mu Wanru's face was full of shyness. She gently unbuttoned her dress and slowly approached him. As she walked step by step, her long dress fell off her body and fell to the ground. Her fair and smooth body was completely exposed to the cold air. Mu Yaja's pupils constricted. A hint of suppressed anger flashed in the depths of his handsome eyes. Tonight, I'll give myself to you. You want me, okay? The woman walked in front of him. A pair of arms slowly wrapped around the man's sturdy waist. Her delicate lips softly pressed against his chest. She was trying to melt his cold heart with her tenderness. When she was looking forward to the man's next move, the man's cold voice came from the top of her head. Put it on. What? She was shocked. She raised her head in surprise but looked into a pair of deep eyes. Put it on and get lost. His voice was as cold as ice colliding. Before Mu Wanru could react, Mu Yaja fiercely pinched her chin and said with a face full of disgust, even if you want to, you have to see if I'm interested in you. I advise you, don't try your best to show off your charm. Don't you think you're very cheap? Cheap? He asked back, what? Isn't it? Don't you think you're disgusting? Mu Yaja pushed her away heavily, if you want to seduce me, please show me some real ability. Otherwise, it will only make me more disgusted. Mu Wanru was pushed to the ground. She was in so much pain that she frowned. Embarrassed, humiliated, and broken down, she cried with red eyes, what kind of woman do you like? I can change for you. Do you like Yunshusher? Pure and innocent. If you were half of her, you wouldn't be so disgusting. Mu Wanru was stunned. Tears flowed freely from her eyes. The man didn't even look at her. He only felt disgusted. He hooked her with his toes and covered her body with her clothes. Get lost. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps came from outside the door. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, followed by Xiao Yichen's childish voice. Daddy, can I come in? The door wasn't locked, so Xiao Yichen tiptoed and pushed the door open. However, as soon as he opened the door, he was greeted with an unbearable scene. He saw Mu Wanru lying on the ground, completely naked, with only a dress barely covering her body. At the side, Mu Yaja stood coldly at the side, his face as dark as ink. Daddy. Xiao Yichen was shocked. His face turned red and he quickly turned around. I'm sorry, come here. Seeing the little fellow, Mu Yaja bent over slightly and called out. Xiao Yichen blushed. He had never seen a naked woman before. Since he was young, he had been taught the etiquette of a gentleman. Therefore, it was a taboo. When he heard his daddy's call, he covered his eyes and ran into Mu Yaja's arms. Mu Yaja hugged him and covered his eyes with his large palm. He turned his head and glared coldly at Mu Wanru, telling her to get lost. Mu Wanru hurriedly put on her clothes. Embarrassed and angry, she ran away. The door closed again, and silence returned. Xiao Yichen pushed his wide palm away and asked curiously, "Daddy, why isn't Mommy wearing any clothes?" "She's hot," Mu Yaja said calmly. "It's raining outside." "It's very cold." Xiao Yichen mumbled. The scene just now was too impactful. His heart still hadn't calmed down. "Have you finished your homework?" "Yes. I finished it a long time ago." Xiao Yichen smiled and hugged his neck. "I'll sleep with Daddy tonight, okay?" Chapter 315. By the time Yun Shishir rushed to the hospital, it was already late at night. Perhaps it was because she had not slept a wink the entire night that she fell asleep on the sofa while she was packing her clothes. In the end, a call from her manager woke her up. "Remember to come to Huanyu to sign the contract next Monday." Sure, congratulations on signing a contract with Huanyu Entertainment. This is a very smooth first step. He called to inform her not to miss the signing ceremony with Huanyu next Monday. She hung up the call and looked out of the window. It was already drizzling. She could not help feeling a little dazed. She had actually entered the entertainment industry. Would her career progress be smooth in the future? She rushed to the hospital and hurriedly pushed open the ward door. Yun Shishir was also a little surprised by the luxurious VIP ward. In the living room, Yu was sitting in Yun Yecheng's arms, flipping through the comic the latter had bought in boredom. Only the heavens knew how bored he was to be flipping through the comic books that he usually disdained. When he saw Yun Shishir, he immediately pounced into her arms barefooted. "Mommy, you're finally here. I thought you were going to leave Yu alone in the hospital again." "How could that be?" Yun Shishir reached out and gently patted Yu's head. She only calmed down when she saw that his complexion had regained some color. She smiled slightly and asked, "Yu, have you eaten?" "Yes, I have. If I wait for my stupid mommy to send food over, Yu will be so hungry that smoke will come out of my 7 orifices." Yun Tianyu pouted in dissatisfaction. His tone was full of grievance and resentment. Yun Shishir did not know whether to laugh or cry. "You even learned an idiom? Did the principal teach you that?" Cough. "It's Yu's mommy who taught me well," Li Hanlin said awkwardly at the side. Yu coolly said, "My mommy never cares about my homework, nor does she sign me up for any interest classes." Basically, Yun Shishir was not willing to impose any heavy learning on the child. She believed that childhood should be enjoyed. Yun Yecheng dialed Li Qin's number, but the call did not get through. He had gone to Yun Na's ward earlier, but she had already left. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't contact the two of them. It was as if he had disappeared from the face of the earth. Although he had doubts in his heart, he didn't care about it anymore. Late at night, a van sped along the highway. In the pitch-black carriage, Yun Na slowly woke up. At the instant she opened her eyes, the intense pain that came from her body stimulated her nerves, and she recalled exactly what had happened. After being taken away from the hospital, Li Dongqiang tied her and Li Qin up and threw them into a van. She struggled fiercely, crying and begging for mercy in a heart-wrenching manner. An enormous fear shrouded her heart. She didn't dare imagine that she would fall to such a state. What's going on? What's going on? How could Yun Tianyu be so capable? He was only 6 years old. How could he be so heaven-defying? She seemed to remember that the man in the suit respectfully called him President Yun. President Yun. At such a young age. She had yet to figure out the ins and outs of the situation. Li Dongqiang saw that she was crying and throwing a tantrum, so he knocked her out with a knife. Yun Na only remembered that her vision turned black, and then she fainted and lost consciousness. When she woke up, she was in an enclosed space with no ventilation. It was stuffy and hot. She opened her mouth to call for help, only to realize that her mouth was taped shut. Other than moaning, she could not make any sound. Chapter 316. She struggled a few times to sit up, but her feet suddenly touched something soft. She was shocked and shrank into a corner. With her weak consciousness, she could tell that it was a person beside her feet. The skin was still warm, and based on the material of the clothes, she guessed that it was Li Qin. In her shock, she leaned toward Li Qin. Then, both mother and daughter woke up. However, in such an enclosed space, the two of them fell into a huge panic. With her weak vision, she seemed to be able to tell that they were in a car. Where were they going? After a bumpy ride, the car suddenly came to a steady stop. Then, there was a deathly silence. Yun Na's shoulders trembled. In her great fear, she seemed to have lost the ability to think. She only hoped that time would stop at this moment. She didn't even know what was waiting for her next. Would it be hell? She trembled as her imagination ran wild. Just as she was at a loss for what to do, the car door was suddenly flung open. Li Dongqiang stood outside the car with a group of ruffians with a cigarette in his mouth. He sneered a few times and pulled Yun Na out of the car by her hair. She screamed. Li Dongqiang frowned in displeasure and slapped her. Be quiet. What are you shouting for? He roared. Yun Na looked at him with teary eyes. Her mouth was taped shut, so she couldn't speak at all. She could only cry and beg for mercy. She knelt on the ground with a thud and kept kowtowing. Every time she kowtowed, she hit the ground hard. Her head was bleeding and she tried her best to beg for mercy to show her sincerity. In the face of fear, she didn't know what pain was anymore. She was numb. She only knew how to kowtow and fantasize that she could arouse Li Dongqiang's pity and spare her life. She had met Li Dongqiang before. He was cruel and merciless, and his hands were stained with blood. It wasn't that she hadn't seen him kill people. One shot and the head exploded. She was so scared that she vomited on the spot. However, the young her thought that such a man was cool and manly. However, when she faced death, she suddenly understood that life was so fragile. She didn't want to die. Her pleas for mercy did not awaken anyone's pity. Li Dongqiang clicked his tongue and shook his head. Yun Na, if you knew this would happen, why did you give it up? What's the use of begging me for mercy? I'm just working for someone else's money. Yun Na was scared out of her wits. She shook her head like a broken wave, and she kowtowed even more vigorously. As she neared death, the fear in her heart expanded infinitely. At first, when she found out that she was disfigured, she was so disheartened that she thought of killing herself. However, it wasn't until the word, death, was right in front of them that they realized that when they were close to death, a strong will to live would arise spontaneously. She didn't want to die, she didn't want to die. Even if he had to live an ignoble existence, he still wanted to live. Li Qin was also carried out of the carriage. Her body went limp and she no longer had the strength to beg for mercy. She was not like Yun Na, who was still young. She was already old, and her physical strength was very poor. The journey was bumpy, and as soon as she got out of the car, she vomited, felt dizzy, and was in a mess. Li Dongqiang felt nauseous. The evening breeze at the port made one's cheeks hurt. The whistle of a ship could be heard in the distance. Chapter 3:17. When Yun Na realized where she was petrified as if she had been struck by lightning. The harbor, was Li Dongqiang really going to listen to that child and throw them into the sea to feed the fish? Do you have any last words to say? He looked at Yun Na with pity. She had been playing with them since junior high, so it was inevitable for her to develop some revolutionary feelings. Thus, he showed her rare kindness. Yun Na shook her head with a pale face. She did not want to die. However, he mistakenly thought that she had no last words to say when she shook her head, so he signaled to the people beside him with his eyes. Remember to clean it up. Got it, Brother Chang. Li Dongqiang sneered. He stopped in front of Yun Na and gently patted her head. Sigh, poor thing. Tell me, why are you so silly? It's not that I don't want to help you, after all, we had a brief relationship before. However, you're the one who schemed against me first, so don't blame me for not caring about our relationship." With that, he stood up and watched helplessly as they were dragged away by a few footmen. Yun-na struggled with her legs flailing as she broke down and cried. At the harbor, a cargo ship was quietly anchored. Li Dongxiang was not an ordinary gangster. He had a powerful underworld organization behind him. He was involved in arms, drugs, money laundering, and everything else. Hence, he naturally had his own cargo ship. His subordinates threw Yun-na and Li Qin on the deck of the ship. With a thud, Li Qin's head hit the guardrail and she fainted. Yun-na could only watch helplessly as the cargo ship gradually left the harbor. The despair in her heart grew infinitely. Yun Tianyo's condition quickly stabilized. The attending doctor paid special attention to it and prescribed him medication to stabilize his condition before informing him to be discharged on Sunday. On the day of his discharge, from the attending doctor to the director, a row of people lined up at the entrance to respectfully send them off. Was there a need to be so high profile? Yun Shishir was speechless. Before Yu was discharged, she had already tidied up the house. She spent half a day tidying up Yu's study room. When the car drove into Xiangdi Walk's bungalow district, Yun Yecheng's expression changed. "Shishir, did you drive the car to the wrong place? Why did you drive here? This is the villa district." Yun Shishir broke out in cold sweat. "Dad, we didn't drive the wrong way." It was only when the three of them stood at the entrance that Yun Tianyo's expression changed slightly. "Mommy, this isn't our house, is it? It's our new home." Yun Shishir face-bombed, not knowing how to explain. That man inexplicably gave her a bungalow and called it a gift. The average price of the houses here is more than 100,000 yuan. "Shishir, you..." Yun Yecheng's face turned pale in disbelief. "You might not believe me even if I tell you." Yun Shishir took a deep breath and explained, "I exchanged it for 2 bowls of noodles." Yun Yecheng, who would believe that? The two of them fell silent. 2 bowls of noodles in exchange for a house worth tens of millions. What kind of joke was this? His brows furrowed slightly. Suddenly, he thought of something and smiled without saying a word. He knew who it was. He was not used to living in his previous apartment. It was quite unsafe with all kinds of people. Especially at night, when the apartment was near the notorious East Street. Xiangdi Walk, Dragon Court Real Estate Group, was under Dishing Financial Group. Chapter 318. Just as the three were about to enter the house, they heard the roar of a motorcycle coming from afar. Yun Shishir turned her head in surprise, only to see a handsome heavy-duty motorcycle parked at the garage entrance of the villa next door. A tall and slender figure came into view. She saw a tall and straight young man wearing a British trench coat and a pair of pitch-black motorcycle leather pants, which wrapped around his long legs, making them look long and stylish. The young man took off his helmet. His neat short hair was dyed white gold. He took off his sunglasses expressionlessly. A handsome face was exposed in front of everyone. "Neighbor. He's so tall." It was only when he strode into a villa not far away from them that she reacted to his presence. "So, he's our neighbor. He looks so familiar. Where have I seen him before?" "Stupid mommy, he's not a man," Yu said helplessly. "She's a very famous singer. Her stage name is Jun Mo. Her new album has been released recently, and she's quite popular. She's actually a woman, but she's dressed neutrally." "How did you know?" Yun Shishir asked in surprise. In her impression, Yu was not very interested in music. He was hopelessly tone-deaf. "Because I've seen her on TV before," Yu replied. What Yun Shishir did not know was that before she signed with Huanyu, Yu had already read through all the artistes signed by Huanyu Entertainment. Thus, he had some impression of this female singer. "Dad, don't stand there like a fool. The room is already prepared. Let's go in," Yun Shishir said. "I Yoon Yecheng was still a little hesitant. Initially, he had planned to move back after Yu Yu was discharged from the hospital. He lowered his head to look at Yu Yu, only to see the little lad looking at him. He felt even more guilty inside. Yu Yu raised his head and glanced at Yoon Shishir before turning to smile at Yoon Yecheng. "Grandpa, why don't you stay with us?" Yoon Yecheng stared at him in shock. He thought that Yu Yu would never forgive him. She even thought that the estrangement between them would never be erased. A warm smile appeared on Yu Yu's face. "Grandpa, don't worry. It's Mommy's wish to be filial to you and serve you in your old age. You're old now, so we should all be filial to you. Yu Yu is so sensible." Yoon Shishir happily planted a kiss on his cheek. She looked up and said, "Dad, look. Yu Yu has already said so. The child is so filial. Do you have the heart to reject the child?" "Yes, yes, yes." Yoon Yecheng nodded profusely as he repeated the word, "yes," several times in a row. His eyes could not help but moisten. The three of them chatted and laughed as they entered the villa. Monday. Yoon Shishir woke up early, dressed up, and rushed to the headquarters of Hwanyu Entertainment. The next night, Qin Zhou specially sent her a message, repeatedly reminding her not to be late. According to tradition, before the signing ceremony, there would be a personal interview with Hwanyu's senior director, Ji Lin. Ji Lin, nicknamed Ji Yen Luo, was famous for being strict and had a strong sense of punctuality. If the appointed time was not up, he would not be lenient. Previously, there was a newcomer who was good in all aspects, but because he missed the interview, he directly cancelled the contract without mercy. Chapter 319. Just when she was anxious, a Maserati stopped steadily in front of her. The window was lowered, and a handsome young man's feminine face appeared. Yoon Shishir frowned slightly and recognized him at a glance. No, it was her. Jun Mo lived in the villa next to hers. Seeing her car stop, Yoon Shishir said in a friendly manner, "Hello." Jun Mo took off her glasses and glanced at her with her beautiful eyes. Her thin lips curled up slightly. "Get in." Yoon Shishir was a little dumbfounded by these two simple words. What do you mean? It's hard to get a taxi here." Her voice was clear and deep with a hint of hoarseness. It was a kind of feminine between genders. If one didn't listen carefully, it would be difficult to tell her gender. "Aren't you rushing to Hwanyu for an interview?" "It's on the way." Even though it was a little abrupt, time was of the essence. She couldn't care less about being pretentious and immediately nodded. "Thank you." She opened the door and sat in the back seat. Jun Mo skillfully turned the steering wheel and stepped on the accelerator. The car sped away from Xiangdi Walk. Yoon Shishir put her bag aside and looked around curiously. Her gaze fell on the handsome face in the rearview mirror. The reason why a woman was described as beautiful was because Jun Mo, whether it was her temperament or her dressing, revealed a femininity that was different between men and women. She had the calmness and grace of a man, but also the exquisiteness and delicacy of a woman. This handsomeness had nothing to do with gender. Especially that pair of long and narrow eyes, they were deep and charming. She even felt a little stunned for a moment. In the rearview mirror, Jun Mo glanced at her from the corner of her eye and met her gaze. Yoon Shishir looked away awkwardly. The car was cold and damp. After a light rain last night, the weather in the early morning was a little cold. The air in the car was cold, and she was only wearing a thin shirt, so it was inevitable that she felt a little cold. Jun Mo glanced at Yoon Shishir's uneasy face in the rearview mirror and asked, "Cold?" "Yes. A little." Jun Mo looked straight ahead again. She didn't say anything but turned on the heater. Not long after, the carriage was filled with warmth. Yoon Shishir was touched by her thoughtfulness and immediately thanked her. Jun Mo's lips curled up, but she didn't say anything. She just took out a cigarette from the cigarette box and lit it skillfully. The lighter was a limited edition commemorative God of Fire by Zippo, and it was hard to find one on the market. A wisp of smoke filled the carriage. The smell of smoke was not strong, nor was it pungent. Instead, it smelled good. At least, it was not repulsive. The entire journey was silent. The car sped along, and the scenery outside the window flashed by. Your name is Yun Shishir, right? Her eyes lit up. How do you know my name? I saw you at the banquet. June Mo was silent for a moment, as if she was considering her words. In the end, she still said two simple words, very beautiful. Yun Shishir blushed and smiled. Thank you. He was a little surprised. Although June Mo looked a little arrogant and cold, she wasn't as unapproachable and unexpectedly friendly as she looked on the surface. June Mo said, "It's a good opportunity to sign with Huanyu. You have to cherish it." Yes, I will. The car quickly drove into Huanyu Tower. I'll drop you off here. I'll go park the car. After saying that, June Mo drove the car into the garage. Yun Shishir couldn't help but feel flattered by her kindness. It was like a dream. It was a little unreal. Chapter 320. After all, apart from Xiao Shui, there were very few women who treated her so well since she was a child. Perhaps it was because she was not good at socializing. The darkness of her childhood made her cautious in dealing with people and other aspects. Hence, she did not have many friends. Therefore, she cherished this rare kindness very much. She looked down at the time. There was still some time before the interview. When she walked out of the elevator, Qin Zhou seemed to have just arrived at the company. When he saw her, he was a little surprised. Ah, Shishir, you're here so early. Yes. I couldn't get a taxi at the entrance. Fortunately, someone sent me here in time. Someone sent you? Who? Qin Zhou was stunned. What a coincidence. I think it's June Mo, she learned her name from Yu Yu. June Mo? Qin Zhou frowned slightly. Where do you live now? Xiangdi Walk. Qin Zhou was stunned. Xiangdi Walk was a famous mansion in the capital. Where did she live? That's a mansion. Why do you live there? I won the lottery, Yun Shishir said awkwardly. You're so lucky. Qin Zhou sighed sincerely. He led her into the office and suddenly thought of something. Do you have a driver's license? Yes, but I don't know how to drive. Yun Shishir, can you be any more stupid? Qin Zhou said mercilessly. Yun Shishir said helplessly, are you blaming me for not knowing how to drive? Well, okay. After you sign the contract, I'll arrange a car for you to take you to and from work. Qin Zhou said and brought her into the office. He filled in some information for her and patiently reminded her, the person who will be interviewing you later is Huanyu's entertainment director. He's famous for being strict and nicknamed Ji Yanluo. You have to be careful during the interview. Yes, I will. Yun Shishir finished filling in the information and suddenly looked up. If I sign the contract, will I have my own manager? There is. Qin Zhou took her information and looked through it carefully. Who will it be? Hee, of course it'll be me. Qin Zhou smiled and said, Xingzhe specifically asked me to take care of you. If you sign the contract with me, I'll take good care of you. Qin Zhou was Huanyu's ace manager. Whether it was his skills, resources, or background, they were all top-notch. Just making Gu Xingze famous was an achievement that no one in Huanyu could compare to. Even a natural idol like Gu Xingze would not be able to reach his current status without Qin Zhou's support. She had to admit that he was a very powerful person. If Gu Xingze was the king of the entertainment industry, then Qin Zhou could be described as the prime minister who supported the emperor wholeheartedly. Gu Xingze was able to get a role in a Hollywood blockbuster as soon as he debuted. He had signed several fashion commercials and produced a large number of albums. The reason was that Qin Zhou had a considerable amount of resources. What was the most important thing in the entertainment industry? Arranged in order, resources, background, strength, talent, aptitude, and appearance. Appearance could be remolded, and it was fine if one was not strong enough. However, resources and background were often things that could not be obtained even if one begged for it. People in the entertainment industry never dared to say harsh words and promote whoever they wanted. However, Qin Zhou had the confidence to do so. No matter who it was, as long as he said harsh words and supported them with all his heart, they would definitely become famous in his hands. Many popular artists had thrown him an olive branch and even hired him with a lot of money, but Qin Zhou was unmoved. Chapter 321. He only had one artist, Gu Xingze, under him. If he spent all his resources on him, others would be jealous. The entertainment industry was full of dangers. Gu Xingze was naturally worried about assigning Yun Shishir to another manager. He was afraid that he would be devoured until not even his bones were left. Therefore, Qin Zhou personally came to manage Yun Shishir. Resources were another matter. At least with Qin Zhou's methods and background, he was definitely a reliable manager. Qin Zhou urged, "Fill in these documents first. The director's office is next door. I'll bring you to see him." There were only 2 offices on the 18th floor of Huanyu. One was for Ji Lin, and the other was for Qin Zhou. It was obvious that Qin Zhou had a pivotal position in Huanyu. Yun Shishir had just finished filling in a stack of documents when Qin Zhou took out another stack of documents like magic. She was stunned. Why are there so many? These are all model contracts. Take a closer look. After the interview, the director will sign it. Is it a contract to sell myself? She rolled her eyes suspiciously. Qin Zhou rolled his eyes back and smiled evilly. Yes, it's a contract to sell yourself. Hurry up and sign it, and you'll be mine. Qin Zhou was good in every way, but he was usually a little indecent and sharp-tongued. She vaguely remembered the last time at Empress Fashion Club, he had stabbed Xiao Dong of the Xiao group with a few words. Xiao Dong had a pair of fierce eyes that wanted to destroy him. Yun Shishir suddenly said strangely, "You seem to be very free today. Where's Xingze?" "He went to Milan for a fashion show and will return the day after tomorrow," Qin Zhou said and suddenly teased. "Why? Do you miss him?" "Don't talk nonsense," Yun Shishir said angrily. Qin Zhou snorted coldly. How heartless. After a pause, he gossiped again. "To be honest, Xingze seems to be a little too concerned about you. Sigh, look at him. He went to Milan to watch the show and left me alone in the company to deal with the mess." Mess? Qin Zhou stretched out his finger and rubbed the space between his eyebrows. With a tired face, he said, "Yeah, what a huge mess." Naturally, he would not tell Yun Shishir that Gu Xingze had offended Yang Shouqing because of her. He hadn't been able to sleep well for the past few days as he had been dealing with this matter. He didn't know what was wrong with that kid. Of all the people he could have offended, he chose to offend Yang Shouqing, the boss of the European king. During the most glorious period of Hong Kong movies, Yang Shouqing had an unshakable position in the entertainment industry. Even though Hong Kong's movies were gradually declining, Elder Yang's status was still there. He actually went to injure someone. He didn't mind the trouble, but the trouble was that if the Gu family found out about his actions, there would be some criticism. Gu Xingze's brother was even harder to please than Master Yang. He was in a terrible fix. What happened? Just as Yun Shishir finished speaking, there was a sudden commotion outside the door. Qin Zhou frowned and opened the door, only to see Tang Yu blocked at the door of the director's office. She wanted to enter but was stopped by Ji Lin's assistant. Tang Yu's assistant and Tang Yu were in a deadlock, staring at each other. Why is she here? Didn't she already terminate her contract? Qin Zhou sneered and muttered. She still dares to look for Ji Yanluo. Is she looking for a scolding? Chapter 322. Tang Yu terminated the contract. Yun Shishir gossiped for once. Why did Tang Yu terminate the contract? Qin Zhou turned around and complained, "My dear miss, don't you read the entertainment news on a regular basis? In any case, you're someone who's about to enter the entertainment industry. You should at least pay attention to the news in the industry. Ha! Yun Shishir was ashamed. I don't usually watch TV. You, tell me. Yun Shishir's gossipy soul was burning fiercely. Qin Zhou sneered. What else can it be? The news about her unspoken rules is all over the city. Huan Yu has always valued the image of its artists. Now that she's notorious, who else can they kick out but her? Not only that, as an artist, a few advertisers have withdrawn their contracts with her. The few movies she signed were forced to change actors midway. The losses are huge. She even has to pay the liquidated damages to the company. Yun Shishir's lips twitched. Unspoken rules. She was fine when he saw her at the cocktail party. In just a few days, such a big change happened. Things were still the same, but people had changed. Slap, Qin Zhou was too lazy to explain so much. He just threw a stack of newspapers in front of her. Yun Shishir flipped through it and frowned in surprise. Wow, that was too explosive. But what she didn't know was that it was all fate's fault. If Mu Yaja hadn't arrived in time, she would have been the one to appear on the headlines. But a certain someone was still oblivious to the ins and outs of the matter and was still reading the newspapers gloatingly. The newspapers published the headlines for a few days, reporting on this incident. Even now, the news was still hot and had been the topic of conversation for the public. Tang Yu returned to the villa with Huan Yu's top management late at night and didn't leave. The reporters arrived in time. What was more shocking was that the two of them were so anxious that they forgot to close the curtains. The reporters took photos and videos and spread them all over the internet. It was too late to ban them. Actually, after the incident, Tang Yu's studio secretly contacted the paparazzi and offered to buy all the videos and photos in their hands at a sky-high price. They wanted to destroy the evidence and at least suppress the limelight at the critical moment. Unfortunately, these reporters refused no matter what. Even with 7 figures, they could only buy a few photos. Who's afraid of who? Their photos had already been bought by a mysterious investor at a high price. He wanted to ruin Tang Yu's reputation. Tang Yu's studio's crisis was just a last-ditch struggle. In just one night, Tang Yu's fans on Weibo had dropped by a few million. At this stage, she was still losing fans. Tang Yu was dumbfounded when he saw that his path to stardom was destroyed. He could not recover from the setback. That was not all. Blessings never come in pairs, and misfortunes never come singly. Huan Yu received several notices in succession. A few advertisers proposed to terminate their contracts. Tang Yu's roles in the TV series and movies that she was filming in were removed. Even if it was a finished film, there was not a single bit of her scene left. Now that her reputation was in tatters, Huan Yu was facing a sky-high penalty for breaching the contract. The higher-ups were furious. For companies, artists were like products. Without popularity, they would have no value. Huan Yu Entertainment and Tang Yu's studio laid their cards on the table and proposed to terminate the contract. Tang Yu was about to face a sky-high penalty of 9 figures. How pitiful. A pitiful person must have something hateful, Yun Shishir said. Chapter 323. Stop fooling around. Yun Shishir slapped his hand away. Just as Tang Yu was feeling depressed, she saw that Qin Zhou's office was open. She rolled her eyes and walked in with a smile. Nobody knew what she was thinking. Chairman Qin. When she saw him, she would first sweetly compliment him. Qin Zhou held shares in Huan Yu. Therefore, artists and staff who were of a lower level had to respectfully address him as Chairman Qin, even if they weren't A-listers. Qin Zhou knew that she was up to no good. He rolled his eyes lazily. What? Tang Yu was about to speak when she entered the room. She was dumbfounded when she saw Yun Shishir, who was sitting at the side and signing an agreement. Yun Shishir? Why are you here? It's none of your business. Mind your own business. Qin Zhou reminded her coldly. Tang Yu remembered what she was here for. She said coquettishly, Chairman Qin, you have to help me. Her soft voice gave Qin Zhou goosebumps all over his body. Don't act coquettishly if you don't know how to. As soon as he spoke, he felt a chill run down his spine and goosebumps appeared all over his body. Help you with what? I don't know which B*TCH did this to me. My reputation is ruined and the company wants to terminate my contract. Chairman Qin, you have a lot of say in the company. Also, you're such a good friend of Director Ji. Can you talk to Director Ji for me? Tang Yu felt wronged too. She was a little drunk at the cocktail party that day. In order to seek a better future, she clung onto Mu Yaja, thinking that she could climb into his bed. Little did she expect that he would throw her into a car and drive her to Li Wenqing's villa. Li Wenqing was one of Huan Yu's top executives and one of the company's shareholders. He also had a seat on the board of directors. He had played with many women. In a way, he could be considered Tang Yu's old flame. They had been together for a while. The few movie contracts that Tang Yu accepted were all resources provided by him. Tang Yu was a little surprised to see him. However, she thought that it was all arranged and that he had personally picked her. She did not suspect anything. Li Wenqing was also a little suspicious when he saw her. Didn't he personally pick the newcomer from the cocktail party? Her name was Yun Shusher. Why did he send Tang Yu instead? However, in the middle of the night, he had nowhere to vent his lust. As soon as Tang Yu entered the room, the two of them were entangled together. After that, he didn't expect that he would be plotted against. The pictures and text were well illustrated, and the evidence was conclusive. No matter how capable the public relations team was, they were at their wits' end. It would be difficult for them to clear their names. Qin Zhou had a headache and waved his hand. Get lost. Don't bother me. I'm also in a mess. I can't even save myself. There's still a mess that gives CEO Qin a headache. Qin Zhou was annoyed. Tang Yu, now that things have come to this, nobody can save you. If you really want me to point you out a way out, seeing that you're young and have good potential, I'll be kind and introduce you to a film contract. Tang Yu's eyes brightened. He couldn't hide his excitement. Really? President Qin, I knew you wouldn't leave me in the lurch. What kind of movie is it? Qin Zhou smiled evilly. Golden Lotus 3D. F***CK. Playing with her. Jean Ping Mei 3D. That was a third-rate movie, okay? What was this? What kind of kindness was this? He was obviously kicking her when she was down. Was he waiting to see her embarrass herself? No matter what, she was still a B-list starlet. She was also a popular teen idol. How could he let her star in such a low-class movie? You. Tang Yu was so angry that her face turned red. Chapter 324. I'm a teen idol, and you want me to star in a third-rate film? Tang Yu said angrily. Oh. You're still flattering yourself. Teen idol. You made such a big scene this time, and the video is all over the city. Who hasn't seen you naked? Why are you being so pretentious? Qin Zhou mocked. Tang Yu was speechless. Don't underestimate this resource. How many female stars are lining up to be in it? For a role in it, they're fighting so hard. Don't you care? Qin Zhou said disapprovingly. This was a blatant humiliation. Tang Yu felt so ashamed that she couldn't show her face. She said angrily, President Qin, are you hitting me when I'm down? Qin Zhou pretended to be wronged. Oh, you're biting me. I'm helping you out of kindness, and you're saying that I'm hitting you when you're down. Really, Recommending you to this film is already a compliment to you. Don't you know what your reputation is? Even if it's for my sake, the director might not choose you. Tang Yu was so angry that she stomped her feet. Suddenly, she glanced at Yun Shusher from the corner of her eye. The latter's pen paused, and she felt a chill run down her spine. She looked up and saw Tang Yu glaring at her. What was this? She got shot even when she was lying down. Yun Shishir, what are you doing in Huanyu? Signing a contract, Yun Shishir said coldly. Signing a contract? Tang Yu was shocked. You signed a contract with Huanyu just like that? Usually, it was impossible for a newcomer to sign a contract with Huanyu Entertainment right after their debut unless they had a strong background. No matter how good their qualifications were, they were the first in history to sign a contract with the headquarters right after their debut. There were 2 big studios under Huanyu. Usually, newcomers who just debuted would sign a contract with a studio first. Huanyu would only seriously consider signing a contract when they had some fame. As the dream factory of the entertainment industry, Huanyu's requirements to sign a contract were very high. Tang Yu's eyes were sharp. She saw the contract in her hand. It was indeed a model contract, and there was also a signing letter. She was so jealous that her eyes turned red. It was scary. *TCH, I don't know what kind of despicable methods she used. Who are you talking about? Without waiting for Qin Zhou to speak, Yun Shishir asked coldly, watch your mouth. Tang Yu was stunned. At the banquet, Yun Shishir was considered a gentle and soft persimmon. Why was his mouth so sharp today? He was no longer as submissive as before. Or was it because she had lost her power that even a newcomer who had yet to debut did not put her in her eyes? When a tiger leaves the plains, it will be bullied by dogs. Her lips curled into a smile. It wasn't that she bullied the weak and feared the strong. Previously at the cocktail party, she was worried about her image. As a newcomer, she naturally couldn't show off too much at such an occasion. Otherwise, offending one person was tantamount to offending a group of people. In the entertainment industry, seniority was the most important thing. If a newcomer who had yet to debut was too ostentatious, it was inevitable that he would be surrounded and suppressed. However, now that they were in private, what was there to talk about? You've got it upside down. Now, I'm the tiger and you're the dog. So what if I bullied you? Haven't you heard of the saying, beat a dog when it's down? Qin Zhou was surprised. This girl's mouth was quite vicious. Where did she learn it from? Tang Yu was so angry that she raised her hand. Qin Zhou quickly stopped her. Oh my God. This is my office. How dare you behave so atrociously? Chapter 325. It's not that I want to nag at you, but what's the point of arguing with her? She's barefoot now, so she's not afraid of you. Don't pester her endlessly. Oh. Yun Shishir nodded. Tang Yu was so angry that her eyes almost popped out. You, get lost. Qin Zhou waved his hand as if he was shooing away a fly. Don't dirty my precious feng shui. What's the fuss about? Outside the office, Ji Lin stood with his arms crossed and looked at Qin Zhou and the others coldly. Yun Shishir looked toward the voice. The rumored director Ji Yanluo, was actually younger than she had expected. He was about 28 years old and wore a mature business suit. His hairstyle was meticulously styled, making him look especially energetic. He was handsome and had eyebrows like stars. His facial features were more regular and he looked very mature. However, he was just as the rumors said. He was serious and his face was cold. His aura was intimidating and his eyes were dignified. Tang Yu, you still have the face to step into Huanyu? If you have the time to pester me, why don't you think about it yourself? Your studio can't even handle the most basic public relations crisis. Ji Lin said coldly. Currently, Huanyu's decision to deal with you is only to terminate your contract. If you continue to pester us endlessly, you'll have to face Huanyu's ban. Every word was like a gem and sent chills down her spine. Banning order, once Huanyu's ban came out, she would have no chance to make a comeback. Tang Yu was still making her final struggle. Director Ji, can't you give me another chance? This time, there was a villain who plotted against me. It won't happen again. I've been loyal to Huan Yu for so many years. Even if I didn't make any contributions, I've at least worked hard. Next time. There's a next time. Ji Lin said mercilessly, you don't have any acting skills or EQ. Not only that, but your IQ is also so low. Haven't you caused enough trouble for me? You're worthless now. Get lost. Director Ji, shut up. Ji Lin said angrily and pointed at the elevator. Get lost. Tang Yu's entire body withered. Seeing that there was no room for negotiation, he could only leave dejectedly. Before she left, she turned around and glared at Yun Shishir. Then, she stomped her feet and left. Ji Lin turned around and scolded his assistant, do you know how to do things? Wouldn't you ask the security to chase away such a person? The assistant lowered his head with a mournful expression. He accepted the scolding and did not say a word. Yun Shishir was stunned. This Ji Yanluo had a fiery temper. He probably worked overtime again last night. Working overtime? Yes. After the banquet, he had to clean up the mess. I didn't sleep well last night, and Tang Yu shamelessly came here to make trouble. How could I not be angry? With that, Qin Zhou immediately picked up the contract letter that Yun Shishir had filled out neatly and walked up to her in a flirtatious manner. Old Ji. You're so angry early in the morning. Be careful not to hurt your kidneys. Yun Shishir, Ji Lin rolled his eyes. Have you dealt with Gu Xing's matter? This time, it was Qin Zhou's turn to be listless. No, then you have the nerve to come and see me? Ji Lin poked his head. Take care of your artist. Don't think that he can look down on old Master Yang just because he has the Gu family's support. Qin Zhou said gloomily, I went to the hospital to see old Master Yang yesterday. His injury is not serious. It's just a small injury. He said that he wanted me to hand the person over to him and he would deal with it himself. Chapter 326. Qin Zhou brought Yun Shishir into the director's office and retreated from the room. Sit. Wait for one more person. With that, he picked up the file and looked at it. Another person. Who could it be? Was she not the only one who signed the contract today? Yun Shishir sat on the chair and looked around carefully. The decoration of the office was simple and everything was neatly arranged. There were several celebrity portraits on the wall. They were all A-list celebrities under Huan Yu. Among them, Gu Xing's portrait was among them. There were many books and albums on the bookshelf. There was a short table in front of the sofa with a high-end tea set on it. There was a knock on the door. Yun Shishir turned her head in confusion and saw that it was Jun Mo who walked in. Seeing that it was her, Yun Shishir smiled. Jun Mo nodded, closed the door, and sat down beside her. Director Ji. Ji Lin raised his wrist and looked at his watch. He said coldly, you're always on time. You won't appear until the last minute. Jun Mo said indifferently. I just had a smoke outside. You're quite free and elegant. Ji Lin said. Jun Mo's lips curled as she turned to look at Yun Shishir and slowly reached out her hand. Hi. Her voice was not very warm or intimate, but there was a faint smile in her eyes. Yun Shishir smiled and shook her hand. Hello. Yes. Everyone is here. Let's start. Ji Lin sat at his desk and held the contract filled out by Yun Shishir. He asked indifferently, Yun Shishir. Yes, Director. Have you read the contents of the contract carefully? I have, she replied. Do you have any objections? No objections. Ji Lin asked a few more questions, and Yun Shishir answered them one by one. As a student of media college, Ji Lin was very satisfied with her professionalism and conduct. But in the end, Ji Lin sternly stated a few conditions to her. Since you've read the contract carefully, you should be clear about the conditions. I hope you can abide by them. Understood. Ji Lin raised his head, looked at her deeply, and slowly said, Your aptitude is very good, but I need to give you a word of advice. Yun Shishir was all ears. Please speak. No matter what you were. But from the moment you signed the contract with Huan Yu, as a public figure, I hope you will be careful with your words and actions. Yun Shishir was stunned. What happened just now? I don't want it to happen again. Yes, I understand. Perhaps your impression of the entertainment industry is still limited to the reports on TV and entertainment magazines. But here, I still want to give you a piece of advice. As an artist, the company's arrangements are simple. Be obedient and do as you are told. Don't touch what you shouldn't touch. Don't make mistakes that you shouldn't, understand? Jun Mo was a little surprised. In her impression, this Ji Lin did not seem like a patient person. Yet, he gave her advice. Did it seem like he was taking special care of her? Ji Lin turned to discuss the renewal of the contract with Jun Mo. Yun Shishir listened at the side. It turned out that Jun Mo's contract with Huan Yu had expired. Her aptitude was very promising, and the company hoped that she could renew the contract. In addition, her previous manager was hospitalized with cancer and the position had been empty. Ji Lin planned to assign her a new manager. Chapter 327. Among the many artists signed by Huan Yu, Junjun's talent was outstanding. She was a rock singer and had her own band. She had debuted for 5 years, and with her unique personality, outstanding appearance, and excellent singing skills, she had a group of awe-inspiring loyal fans. Her popularity was high, and she had always been the focus of Huan Yu's grooming. In the entertainment industry, if one was good at singing, they would act. Ji Lin's plan for her was to enter the film industry and transform into an actress. In the music industry, the popularity of rock singers did not last long. If they did not transform, their accumulated popularity would eventually decline. In the end, they came up with a plan. Ji Lin would manage Gu Xingze under his own name, and let Qin Zhou manage Yun Shishir and Junjun. Without a doubt, this had been confirmed with Qin Zhou. Qin Zhou readily agreed. With the abundant resources in his hands, managing 2 newcomers was not a big problem. Gu Xingze was now at the peak of his popularity. He was about to set up his own record company, and the company would focus on planning for him. Qin Zhou, a general, could be considered to have retired after accomplishing his mission. Yun Shishir was a little flattered. For a newcomer like her to sign a contract with Huan Yu right after her debut, and even be assigned under a top manager, was a beautiful thing that many people in the industry did not dare to dream of. Ji Lin called Qin Zhou in. Qin Zhou brought a few more contracts and asked them to fill them one by one. From now on, you are my people. Qin Zhou looked at them with satisfaction, his heart full of excitement. Ji Lin said, Qin Zhou, have you really thought it through? I have. Qin Zhou looked relaxed and calm, his handsome face showing calmness. I, Qin Zhou, have done my best to accompany Xingze until now. Now that Xingze has achieved success, I also want to make a comeback. As he said this, he smiled meaningfully. Men always have a strong desire to conquer, whether it's a woman or a career. After that day, the news of Qin Zhou and Gu Xingze terminating their contracts spread like wildfire. Huan Yu's internal staff was shocked. It was undoubtedly a heavy bomb. Some people were happy, while others were worried. He was happy that Qin Zhou had terminated his contract with Gu Xingze. If he could work with this top manager, with the superior resources in his hands, he would definitely be able to ride the wind and soar. Unfortunately, it was rumored that Qin Zhou had managed a newcomer. But, before the press conference, no one knew who this lucky newcomer was. There were also some people who were surprised. In the entertainment industry, water flowed down to the bottom while people walked up to the top. Why didn't she rely on a superstar and now wanted to terminate her contract? That's a story for another day. Ji Lin put away Yun Shishir and Jun Mo's contracts, stood up and walked to them. I hope you guys can work harder. Don't make me doubt my judgment. Jun Mo reached out and shook Ji Lin's hand. She looked confident and proud. Thank you, Director. Thank you for your appreciation, Director Ji. I will work hard. Yun Shishir also shook hands with Ji Lin. Ji Lin sized her up from top to bottom. Remember, I don't look at the process. I only look at the results. Qin Zhou smiled and said, Old Ji, are you still worried about me? Don't worry. Jun Mo and Shishir are in my hands. I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer. Before that, you have to clean up the mess first before we talk about anything else. Ji Lin said indifferently. Chapter 328. Before that, you have to clean up the mess first before we talk about anything else, Ji Lin said indifferently. Qin Zhou was instantly depressed again. At noon, Qin Zhou, Yun Shishir, and Jun Mo had a simple lunch before taking a short break in the company. Jun Mo sat on the leather chair, adjusted it to a comfortable angle, and closed her eyes to rest. Qin Zhou led Yun Shishir on a tour of Huanyu's headquarters building and introduced it to her floor by floor. Huanyu's headquarters towered into the clouds and was extremely spectacular. It was a full 50 floors high and was unreachable. It was Yun Shishir's first time visiting this entertainment empire that was the focus of the world's attention. Huanyu had 2 major film and TV production companies and 3 authoritative media companies. Whether it was movies, TV series, or records, Huanyu had everything in one place. The huge entertainment empire was run in the entire building. As the famous Dream Factory, any name of the artistes signed by Huanyu was like thunder to one's ears. In today's entertainment industry, the 4 new female stars, the 4 ancient actors, Yang Mi, Han Yuyan, Yan Bingqing, Li Zhouxian, Lu Junyu. These hot names were all signed by Huanyu. Huanyu was no longer just a milestone. It was already an industry giant that monopolized the entertainment empire. Qin Zhou took her to the rehearsal room, recording studio, and interview hall. He also brought her to meet a few famous film and TV series producers and directors under Huanyu. Yun Shishir's elegant manner of speaking left a deep impression on many people. Everyone had high hopes for this newcomer. Then, Qin Zhou gave her a general introduction of Huanyu's treatment. The treatment was unexpectedly good. The remuneration ratio on the contract was very generous. Generally speaking, the remuneration ratio for the artistes signed by Huanyu was generally 70% for the company and 30% for the artistes because of the training and packaging of the newcomers. As for her share, it was 50-50. What did that mean? Let's say that according to the remuneration for the movie, The Green Apple, Gu Xing's contract with Huanyu was 60% to 40%, and the remuneration was 50 million. Then, the company would deduct 20 million from this basis, and the remaining 60%, which was 30 million, would fall into his pocket. This was already the highest treatment in Huanyu. She, on the other hand, was paid 5 million yuan. In her hands, she received a full 50%, which was 5 million yuan. Other than that, Huanyu would also provide a car for the artists to pick them up. She was given a Volkswagen Phaeton. Even if it was a newcomer who had just debuted, the company would do their best to reduce public exposure. Huanyu had done a lot of homework on how to protect their artists' privacy. Even the most highly trained paparazzi wouldn't be able to catch the slightest movement of an artist from Huanyu. As for the private photos of celebrities on the entertainment media websites, they were just celebrities seeking exposure and cooperating to create hype. What awaited her next was a long and intensive training course. One of the most important aspects was the cultivation of the actors. Yun Shishir was outstanding whether it was in terms of external conditions, appearance, temperament, manners, or internal conditions, such as conversation, etiquette, and acting skills. He only lacked the tempering of his works. In the history of Huanyu, there had never been an artist who had both beauty and acting skills. It was also because of this that Ji Lin paid special attention to her. Chapter 329. In terms of public relations, how to deal with the tricky and demanding questions of the entertainment reporters, how to handle interviews, and a series of speaking techniques. The company required that the actors had to be fluent and flawless. Gu Xingzi was a textbook example. No matter how demanding the questions were, he could rely on his good reflexes to fend them off. Even in the face of the all-pervasive media, he could handle it with ease. Tang Yu was a classic example of a negative example. She had good looks and good acting skills, but her EQ was extremely low and she spoke without thinking. Everyone knew how she ended up. She fell from being a godly detective to the bottom of the valley. In the current situation of the entertainment industry, artists were no longer the same as before, where they were held high and mighty. Even if you were the nation's goddess, a single mistake in your words would immediately attract an avalanche of anti-fans. Apart from that, there was a series of classes. Her schedule was packed to the brim for a whole month. Apart from that, the opening ceremony of The Green Apple was also imminent. Qin Zhou informed her to go to the temporary filming set in 3 days to complete the trial photo shoot. In short, her schedule was packed to the brim with no gaps. The moment she received the schedule, she froze. It's so packed. Yun Shishir protested a little. There were 30 days in a month, and 29 days were scheduled. The remaining day was to go to the filming set for the trial photo shoot. This schedule was unbelievably tight. Is this still considered full? Qin Zhou chuckled. Then you haven't seen Gu Xing's schedule. His schedule? Was there a schedule more packed than hers? You haven't officially stepped into this industry, but I've already been merciful to you. Take a look at Gu Xing's schedule. Qin Zhou passed Gu Xing's schedule to her lightly. Yun Shishir glanced at it curiously and almost fainted. Half a month was only 15 days, but he had a total of 32 events scheduled. Apart from the events, he spent the rest of his time flying in the sky. He probably had very little sleep every day. She felt a little sorry for him. Celebrities looked glamorous on the surface, but she didn't know that they were so tired behind the scenes. She furrowed her brows and complained, "This is exploitation." Qin Zhou complained, "What do you mean by exploitation?" Sure, you might not know this, but to a celebrity, exposure means life. This is like the same product, one is placed in the front of the supermarket, the other is placed in the corner of the supermarket. Which one do you think will sell better? Of course it's the former, she said without hesitation. As long as you understand. Qin Zhou suddenly said in a low voice, Sure, you have to remember that in this industry, you have to be careful with your words and actions. Just like what Yan Luoji said, if you accidentally offend someone, they might even ban you from the market. When that time comes, it won't be as simple as just lying in a corner. Yun Shishir naturally understood the meaning of his words. When the time comes, I'll definitely be kicked into the warehouse to collect dust. Smart. Qin Zhou smiled. Aren't you stupid? It's all thanks to President Qin's good teaching. Naughty girl, you've got guts. Now you know how to make fun of people. Qin Zhou scolded with a smile. In the same batch of trainees, Yun Shishir's name was especially prominent. Among the 15 newcomers, she was the only one who could sign a contract with Huanyu's headquarters. She had just debuted and was already the #1 female lead in a gold medal director's movie. What made people jealous was that the moment she entered the company, she was assigned to the ace manager, Qin Zhou. Chapter 330. Many people started to mutter in their hearts. What kind of background did this newbie have? It was obvious that Huanyu wanted to groom her. She had not even debuted, but she was already chosen by a famous director and was given the role of the female lead. Lin Fengtian was a famous gold medal director in the entertainment industry. He had always been strict, but he actually chose an unknown newbie. In the history of the entertainment industry, there was no example of Lin Fengtian's movies not being popular. Many people racked their brains and still could not get a supporting role in his movies. Not only that, many celebrities were not qualified to be invited to Huanyu's annual cocktail party. Not only did Yun Shishir receive Gu Xing's invitation, she even became Gu Xing's female companion. Putting all these aside, being able to directly sign a contract with Huanyu's headquarters made many people so jealous that they gritted their teeth. What was even more frightening was that she had an ace manager behind her. It would be a miracle if this newbie did not become popular. Among the newbies, many were jealous of her. She had not even debuted, but she already had such excellent resources. They could not wait to be jealous. Therefore, Yun Shishir was inevitably ignored and questioned in the training class. However, she did not care at all. She had more opportunities than others. Any normal person would look at her with suspicion and jealousy. However, it was because of this that she had to work harder than them and cherish this opportunity more than they did. Strength was the best proof for her. After a week of high-intensity training, Yun Shishir was completely exhausted. She was very tired, much more tired than when she went to work. Her body could not bear the burden. Even so, her willpower was considered to be the strongest in the entire class. Many people could not persevere in the face of hellish high-intensity training. The trainees in the training class were cut in batches. In less than a week, half of the trainees were cut. On this day, after the training class, Yun Shishir walked to the lounge. She only felt that her head was heavy and her feet were light. She was still dizzy. The excessive pressure caused her to be unable to sleep well for several days. She muddle-headedly held onto the wall and groped her way to her lounge. She thought to herself, training classes have been packed to the brim for a month. Now, it's only been a week, and she can't take it anymore. What will she do for the rest of the classes? Leaning against the door, Yun Shishir touched the key with one hand. Under Qin Zhou's special care, she had her own private lounge. She turned on her phone and saw a missed call. She stared at Yu Yu's name on the screen and couldn't help but reveal a gentle smile. For the next few days, the school was holding an international children's summer camp in Minghai City. She was not free, so Yun Yeqing accompanied the little lad. Just as he was about to dial the number back, his fingertips suddenly paused. This little guy should be having a good time right now. Now that she was busy with work, she rarely had time to go out with the little guy. It was rare for the school to hold a summer camp, so she would let him have a good time. Yun Shishir closed her phone. Forget it, it's better not to disturb him. Opening the door, the room was brightly lit. She had just walked in when she heard a devilish voice leisurely say, "Welcome, back, with pleasure." Yun Shishir could not help but be shocked. Before she could react, she was on high alert. She turned around and looked outside the door nervously for a while before she slammed the door shut and locked it. Chapter 331. Mu Yaja, what are you doing here? Wasn't he supposed to be busy? On the sofa, Mu Yaja elegantly propped up his upper body. The lapel of his black shirt was slightly open, revealing his well-defined chest. He was wearing a pair of handsome, slim-fit trousers and a pair of expensive handmade leather shoes. His long legs were crossed elegantly, giving him a noble and unruly posture. She had to admit that his figure was very muscular and sexy. Every part of his body was perfect and well-proportioned. A silver necklace dangled between his collarbones, complementing his fair and flawless skin. It was very charming. He had flown to America a while ago and had just gotten off the plane today. His face was weary, and his black hair was slightly messy. It covered his sharp eyebrows and intertwined with his long and thick eyelashes, casting a shadow on his eyelids. Mu Yaja held a cigarette between his fingers, and the room was filled with a faint aroma. Yun Shishir stood rooted to the ground and asked with a frown, "How did you get in? And, how did you know that this is my resting room? Didn't anyone stop you?" This passageway was blocked by the security guards and was heavily guarded. How did he get in so quietly? Stop me? Mu Yaja found her words very interesting. Huanyu Tower is mine, and it's huge. Who dares to stop me? His words did make some sense. Aren't you afraid of being photographed by the reporters? Yun Shishir said helplessly. What a stiff tone. It sounds very uncomfortable. Mu Yaja smiled devilishly. He put out the cigarette and hooked his finger at her. Shishir, come here. Shishir, this was the first time he had called her by her name. His tone was devilishly charming with a hint of gentleness. Yun Shishir was caught off guard, and a part of her heart collapsed. Come here. Seeing that she wasn't moving, a hint of displeasure appeared on his face. Yun Shishir could faintly smell danger. She shook her head and took a few steps back. With her back against the door, she said gloomily, I'm not going over. Mu Yaja curled his lips, his thick eyelashes hiding the mischievous smile in his eyes. Why? She also has a little temper. No, Mr. CEO, how would I dare to be angry with you? Mu Yaja's lips curled into a smile. Come here, then. She turned her face away awkwardly and stood still. Mu Yaja found her awkward look very interesting. You know what? The more you act like this, the harder it is for me to restrain myself. Yun Shishir blushed. The ambiguous meaning in his words was obvious. She immediately frowned and said, Are you a beast? I'm hungry. Mu Yaja's tongue curled into a frivolous smile. A hungry man is very scary. Don't try to arouse my desire to conquer. Then, he leaned forward calmly. Good girl, come here. Hey, do you want me to go over, or do you want to come over? Leaning back in his chair, Mu Yaja lowered his gaze and answered, 3, 2, 1, Mu Yaja pretended to get up. Yun Shishir couldn't help but shudder when she saw this. She quickly braced herself and walked over. The man was leaning on the sofa with one hand supporting his head and a mischievous smile on his lips. Mu Yaja, you. Ah. Chapter 332. Before she could finish her sentence, Mu Yaja grabbed her wrist and pulled her into his embrace. His slender fingers lifted her chin. The man couldn't wait any longer as he lowered his eyes and kissed her lips. His body missed her a little. In the past few days in America, he had missed this woman all the time. He missed her shy and coquettish look. He missed the way she glared at him angrily. Even more, he missed the way she shyly waited under his body. Extremely charming. He missed her as if he had been poisoned by some kind of parasite. It was as if only she could cure the poison in his body. She was his poison, and also his antidote. The tip of his tongue hooked into her slightly opened lips and danced around her sweetness. The faint fragrance of smoke lingered between his lips and teeth. Yun Shishir's heartbeat suddenly sped up, and a flirtatious blush surfaced on her cheeks. At first, the kiss had a hint of attacking a city. He pressed on step by step, and she retreated step by step. However, gradually, his kiss slowly became gentle. Mu Yaja supported his body with one hand, and the other domineeringly wrapped around her waist. He got up slightly and lazily leaned against the sofa. He hugged her to sit on his knees, and with one hand holding onto her thighs, his right hand tightly wrapped around the back of her neck. Using this position, he deepened the kiss. The tip of his tongue gently traced the shape of his lips. The kiss was soft, gentle, and soft, but it also seemed to have a faint trace of electricity. A trembling numbness instantly spread throughout her limbs and bones, and her body unconsciously began to heat up. The instinctive reaction hidden deep in her heart was easily dug out by him. Yun Shishir's breathing lost its stability and became slightly rough. Elan's kiss always had a terrifying magical power that could easily ignite the passion in the depths of her heart. Mu Yaja smiled mischievously. His left hand evilly lifted her lapel and casually untied her knot. His ice-cold fingertips seemed to brush across her collarbone and skin. Yun Shishir was shocked and reached out to hold his hand. What are you doing? Eat you. I don't understand you. Yun Shishir blushed as if she didn't understand the hidden meaning in his words. Mu Yaja smiled and held her fingertips, guiding them to his chest. When her fingertips touched his buttons, Yun Shishir's face immediately turned red. He had become more sensitive after not touching her for a few days. It was just a deep kiss, but her face was completely red, all the way to her ears. It was kind of cute. Mu Yaja said, I didn't say that I was hungry. Woman, feed me. If you're hungry, let's go eat. Yun Shishir was both embarrassed and annoyed. Woman, do you really not understand, or are you pretending not to understand? Mu Yaja licked and kissed the corner of her lips. The tip of his nose pressed against hers as he said softly, "Eat you, don't you understand?" This time, he understood. But, Yun Shishir sucked in a deep breath of cold air. She swallowed hard and pressed her hands against his chest. No. No. Why can't I sleep with my woman? Why was this man so domineering? Yun Shishir was a little angry. She was extremely tired now and wanted to eat a full meal. Then, she wanted to take a short and comfortable nap to replenish her sleep. But, heaven didn't fulfill her wish. Mu Yaja looked at her evasive gaze and felt a little unhappy. Thus, he pinched her chin and covered her mouth with his thin lips again. Chapter 333. Pressing against her soft lips, he said in a low voice, "I missed you." His tone was filled with rare tenderness. It was a poison that no woman could resist. It was as if it had seeped into her bones and numbed all her nerves. At that moment, Yun Shishir was powerless to resist. Hugging her waist, he turned her around and pressed her against the corner of the sofa as he slowly inched closer to her. She didn't even have the slightest leeway before her lips were softly sealed by his again. This time, the kiss wasn't as aggressive as before. His originally cold lips had some warmth under her tenderness. The deep kiss filled her mouth. He was no longer satisfied with just tasting her. He always craved more for her. She was like a mysterious treasure that tempted people to explore. The man's heavy body covered her body. She was so thin that she couldn't bear such strength. Her small hands pushed hard. Under the force, her lips and teeth tightened, blocking all his attacks outside the door. Mu Yaja reached out and pinched her chin. His fingertips pressed hard against her teeth. She felt the pain and couldn't help but open her mouth to compromise. A refreshing breath rushed in, covering her sweet lips and tongue, invading her. His attacks were gradual. Her beauty was hard to find words to describe in the world. Mu Yaja held the back of her neck. His slender fingers slowly entered her hair. He suddenly kissed her fiercely. In his passion, he couldn't wait to integrate her into his bones and blood. Knock knock knock, someone suddenly knocked on the door. Yun Shishir's eyes suddenly opened and she woke up in an instant. Her fading rationality gradually came back. She turned her head in shock and heard a woman's voice outside the door. "Shishir, are you there?" The person outside the door was actually a newcomer from the same batch as her, Jiang Yutong. She was 23 years old and came to Beijing alone when she was in her teens. After struggling for several years, she won the opportunity to sign a contract with Huanyu Pictures. She was a newcomer with good qualifications. If she could achieve good results in this training, she could sign a contract with Huanyu Pictures and officially debut. Without waiting for her response, the woman turned the doorknob but found that it would not budge. "Shishir, I left my jacket in your lounge. Come in and get it." "Are you there?" "Why is the door locked?" The air was filled with a soft and charming aura that flowed ambiguously. He did not stop at all because of the commotion outside the door. She couldn't help but feel a little nervous. She pushed Mu Yaja, who was on top of her, but the man didn't react at all. He ignored the disturbance outside the door. She could not help but feel a little anxious at his indifference. "Mu Yaja, stop," Mu Yaja smirked. "What should I do? I can't stop." Yun Shishir struggled to turn around, but was trapped in his arms domineeringly. Mu Yaja licked her earlobe and whispered, "Let her go." "Yun Shishir, are you there?" The person outside the door was a little impatient. Mu Yaja's flirtatious gaze became more dangerous as his eyes slowly narrowed. Yun Shishir was scared witless. She hurriedly said loudly, I'm not free now." Yun Shishir regretted speaking just now. Her voice was misty and trembling, full of suppressed lust. "How embarrassing." "Shishir, your voice sounds weird. Are you not feeling well?" Chapter 334. Mu Yaja gave a strange smile as his slender index finger pinched her sensitive spot. She let out a soft moan and hurriedly covered her mouth with her hand as she glared fiercely at him. Did this guy want to see her embarrass herself? Sure. What's wrong with you? The person outside pushed the door. Yun Shirshi's nerves were on the verge of breaking. Even her breathing became a little hurried. Answer her. Mu Yaja smiled evilly and the tip of his tongue traced the kiss mark on her neck that hadn't faded yet. That was the seal he had left on her body. Yun Shirshir didn't know what to say and was furious. This man was obviously trying to embarrass her. Under his attack, half of her mind was in a rational state, and the other half was on the verge of collapse. I'm fine. Your coat, I'll send it to you later. There was suddenly no sound outside the door. The long silence made her extremely nervous. However, the man found her nervous look interesting, so he didn't stop attacking her and kept messing around with her body. In the end, Yun Shirshir flew into a rage out of humiliation and wanted to stop this tense invasion. Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain on her lips. Mu Yaja's handsome eyes suddenly opened and a trace of scarlet flashed across his eyes. When he realized that she had bitten his lips, the anger in his eyes disappeared in a moment. In the pain, his lips quickly became numb, but he didn't retreat. Instead, he deepened the kiss with the beautiful sweet taste. The blood on his lips couldn't stop flowing. The tip of his tongue outlined, like a bloodthirsty vampire, evil and charming. He passed the sweet and fishy taste into her mouth. He wanted to let her have a taste of it. In the lounge, there was endless romance. Yun Shirshir's tongue touched a trace of sweetness and a white light suddenly exploded in her mind. Mu Yaja continued kissing and plundering her passionately. However, the person under him gradually stopped responding. Mu Yaja slowly raised his head, only to see the person in his arms looking up at him with a pale face. Her eyes were fixed on his face. There were traces of blood on his lips. It was the blood from when she had bitten his lips. Coupled with her pale lips, it was strangely seductive. His eyes dimmed and he reached out to touch her lips, wiping away the blood on her lips. She opened her mouth and bit his finger. She left a row of deep teeth marks. Like an enraged cat, she bit fiercely without any mercy. Mu Yaja didn't move at all. He slowly got up and seemed to have lost interest. He casually took the suit jacket on the side, opened the door, and walked out. Outside the door, Jiang Yutong did not leave. Instead, she waited for Yun Shirshir at the door. Instead, she bumped into him unexpectedly. Jiang Yutong was stunned. With her status, she naturally didn't know who he was. Her first impression was that this man was too handsome. And he was unusually young. He was tall and had an extraordinary aura. His handsome face was like that of a god. It was difficult to measure his handsomeness with words. Who was he? Why did he walk out of Yun Shirshir's lounge? Jiang Yutong's sharp eyes noticed that there was a wound on his lips, and blood was oozing out. Chapter 335. Mu Yaja frowned slightly. Seeing her gaze on his lips, he subconsciously licked the blood stain with his tongue. Without a word, he turned around and left. Arrogant, cold, and extraordinarily handsome. Judging from his attire, he must be a famous person who was either rich or respectable. Jiang Yutong could not believe it. She had thought that such a man would only appear in her imagination. She did not expect to see him with her own eyes. Hence, she stood there in a daze for a long time. She felt like she was in a dream. But why did he walk out of Yun Shirshir's lounge? Could it be that there was some unknown relationship between them? Jiang Yutong started to make wild guesses. Although she appeared to be amiable and friendly toward Yun Shirshir on the surface, everyone had their own selfish motives, didn't they? Although Yun Shirshir had not officially debuted, she was already very famous. Not to mention the newcomers, even the celebrities had a lot of doubts and suspicions about her. There were rumors that Yun Shirshir was able to appear in Lin Fengtian's film without debuting because she had a sugar daddy behind her. Otherwise, how could a newbie with no fame like her appear in Lin Fengtian's film? That was not all. What right did she have to be invited to Huan Yu's annual cocktail party? Even Yang Mi and Tang Yu had to rely on their connections to get in. What right did she have? She was even Gu Xingze's female companion. She heard that Gu Xingze had personally invited her. Was that possible? Gu Xingze was famous in the industry for being arrogant. Would he personally invite a newbie with no fame to be his female companion? Was it because of her looks? However, in the entertainment industry, there were many talented and beautiful women. There was no lack of different styles. Some were sexy and hot, some were outstanding beauties, and some were pure and innocent. The competition was cruel and the battles were fierce. That was not all. If she made use of this movie's female lead and the cocktail party to make a name for herself, wouldn't it be easy for her to sign a contract and debut? With such excellent resources, who would believe that she did not have a sugar daddy behind her? However, Yun Shishir was completely wronged on this point. Lin Fengtian had personally chosen her to be the female lead because Yun Shishir's temperament matched his image of the female lead. Even the picky Gu Xingze thought that she was the best choice for the female lead. Contrary to what they had guessed, the investors had already decided on the female lead. However, Lin Fengtian was adamantly against it. He would rather not film the film than let the investors force a candidate into the role. However, there was a saying that people's gossip was a fearful thing. As a result, these presumptuous remarks had already spread in private. Jiang Yutong was a little skeptical at first. But now, she believed it all. She believed that Yun Shishir had a sugar daddy. Could it be that the man just now was her sugar daddy? Why? 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 A series of questions flashed through Jiang Yutong's mind. Why did she drop out of school and come to the capital in her teens? As a young girl with an acting dream, she had spent a few years to get to where she was today, step by step, from being naive at the beginning to having the opportunity to sign a contract. Why was it that someone was able to beat her to it, and even, effortlessly obtain a better result than her? On what basis? Therefore, she was more or less jealous of her. But this was human nature. Chapter 336. Hence, when Yun Shishir walked out of the restroom with her coat, the way Jiang Yutong looked at her was different from usual. Yun Shishir bumped into her when she walked out of the restroom. She was startled by her sudden appearance. Yutong. You, Shishir, why have you been in there for so long? What on earth are you doing? Why didn't you respond after knocking on the door for such a long time? Jiang Yutong came back to her senses and immediately cleaned up the messy emotions on her face. She walked in front of her with a smile and took the coat from her hand. I didn't do anything. She smiled, but she did not elaborate on the matter and simply brushed it off. She didn't know how long Jiang Yutong had been standing at the door, nor did she know how much she had heard of what had happened in the room. She only knew that she couldn't explain too much, otherwise, it would only make things worse. But, I think I saw a man walking out of your restroom just now. Your door was locked from the inside. Is there something going on between you two? Jiang Yutong pretended to be very nosy and wanted to know more about it. Yun Shishir was a little anxious. She hated Mu Yaja's casual behavior. It was as if he was the supreme ruler, as if all living beings were his playthings and should be ruled by him. He suddenly appeared in her resting room and did not seem to be afraid of the media reporters who were lurking in Huanyu Tower to take photos. Saying strange things to her out of the blue that disturbed her mind, he suddenly wanted her. He wanted her all the time, regardless of the occasion. He didn't care about her feelings at all. Now, someone saw it and wanted her to explain. But how could she explain it? Seeing that she was silent, Jiang Yutong became more curious. It seemed that she wouldn't give up until she gave her a reasonable explanation. She was definitely going to pester her. But the interesting thing was she really her friend? They had known each other for less than 10 days. They were in the same training class. They had seen each other face to face and exchanged smiles occasionally. Was it necessary for her to explain so much to her? Jiang Yutong saw that she didn't speak and concluded that there must be something going on between the two of them. Wasn't that inevitable? That man must be one of Yun Shishir's financial backers. After thinking about it, she felt that it was very suspicious. Huanyu Tower's security system was in place. How could a random person sneak into Huanyu Tower? It was a leisurely stroll, as if he was taking a stroll in his own backyard, careless and unconcerned. There must be something fishy going on. This man was either a rich and powerful celebrity, or he was one of Huanyu's higher-ups. There were too many unspoken rules in this industry. The scandal of Tang Yu's sleeping scandal had caused an uproar among the public. They were shocked by the dark rules of the entertainment industry. But in Jiang Yutong's eyes, it was not surprising at all. He had been in this circle for a few years, so what kind of dark side had he not seen? No matter how talented or beautiful a newcomer was, it was impossible for her to become famous for no reason. This industry was all about background and resources. No matter how good her aptitude was, if she didn't have anyone to support her from behind, even if she wanted to become famous, it was just that she had nowhere to go. Chapter 337. There must be someone behind the scenes who pushed her to the top. If she wanted to figure it out, she had to build a good relationship with Yun Shishir first. Then she could get the man's identity and the ins and outs of the matter from her. How powerful was the person who could make a newcomer popular in such a short time? If it was possible, she might even be able to poach a man from Yun Shishir and get some resources from him. As for the hidden rules, if she could become popular overnight, she would be willing to do anything. After staying in this circle for a long time, her values were naturally not right. She could not be indifferent to the so-called innocence. After all, she was not young anymore. If she could not make a name for herself, she would never have another chance. Therefore, since she could not force her, she could only play the tender card. With a friendly smile on her face, she lowered her voice and asked, "Shishir, the man just now, is he your boyfriend?" "That's not it," she vehemently denied, feeling baffled by his words. Wasn't Jiang Yutong being overly enthusiastic about her matters? What was the relationship between her and Mu Yaja? Was it her turn to ask? Thinking of this, Yun Shishir turned and walked to the training room. When Jiang Yutong saw this, she unwillingly followed behind her and said carefully, Sure, maybe you think that I'm the kind of person who can't keep secrets, but I've always treated you as a good friend. Among all the newcomers, you take care of me the best. We are friends, right?" Yun Shishir slowed down her pace. Friends, except for Xiao Shui, she really had no friends. When she was in school, she was a little autistic. In school, girls always liked to gather in small groups. If she could not fit in the group, she would be isolated. What's more, when she was in school, her appearance gradually grew. She was fresh, pure, and beautiful. Not only in class, but also many seniors admired her very much. Among them, some of these seniors were the most handsome men in school. They were the Prince Charming in many girls' eyes. Therefore, the hatred was more obvious. Many boys were constantly pursuing her. Every morning when they went to class, their desks would be stuffed with a stack of envelopes. Some of these envelopes contained love letters that were full of sweet nothings, while others contained razor blades and threatening letters sent by some girls. Every time, she threw them away cleanly and didn't open a single one of them. She did not have the throbbing of a girl's youth at all. What she wanted was to get into a good university, then leave the family and be independent outside. Her behavior of throwing away the love letters, in the eyes of outsiders, was arrogant. Most of the boys in school were hot-blooded and cared about their faces. Many boys saw that the girl they passionately pursued threw away the love letters one drawer after drawer, and their admiration turned into anger out of shame. Therefore, not only did the girls give her the cold shoulder, but the boys also ostracized her, isolated her, teased her, and even went overboard. Nobody was willing to be friends with her. It seemed that she did not need a friend. Although she was alone, there was no betrayal, no framing, no trouble, which was very good. But there were many people who pointed at her back and called her a vixen. Li Qin also scolded her, Yun Na also scolded her, and her classmates also scolded her behind her back. She was very confused for a while. She did not know what she did wrong. Chapter 338. She wasn't stupid. She knew exactly what Jiang Yutong was thinking. Jiang Yutong was trying to get information out of her. She wasn't stupid. Why would she tell her? She might look weak, but she wasn't. She stood aloof from worldly affairs. She didn't like to play games, nor did she like to cater to others. If she could get along with someone, she would. If she couldn't, she would never open her heart to them. Sure, why aren't you saying anything? Are you worried that I'll spill the beans? Jiang Yutong patted her chest when she didn't respond. Hey, don't worry. I won't betray you. With that, Jiang Yutong stood in front of her and made a solemn vow. I swear that if I can't keep your secret, I'll be struck by lightning. It was a vow. She wasn't worried about retribution at all. Yun Shishir looked at her deeply. She suddenly felt a little tired. Why should I tell you about my relationship with him? Yun Shishir was confused. Will it help you in any way? Jiang Yutong paused for a moment and quickly explained, No, I didn't. I'm just worried about you. What are you worried about? Yun Shishir was even more curious. Jiang Yutong touched the back of her head and pretended to be worried. Shishir, you signed a contract with Huan Yu, right? Yes. She had signed a contract. But then? Have you read the terms and conditions of the contract? She replied, Yes, I saw it clearly. Then you should know that it's a breach of contract if you're dating in private. Jiang Yutong said to her in a serious tone. She seemed to be concerned, but in fact, she was trying to scare her. Yun Shishir pretended to be deep in thought. In fact, she was secretly guessing what Jiang Yutong was planning. I heard that it's a serious breach of contract. Not only will you be banned by Huan Yu, but you'll also face an astronomical sum of money. You won't be able to pay it back even if you spend your whole life. Jiang Yutong said kindly. Yun Shishir said calmly, It's okay. He's not my boyfriend. Even if it was, so what? The entire Huan Yu belonged to Mu Yaja. However, when Yun Shishir thought about how Mu Yaja had asked her for a sky-high penalty for breaching the contract, she shuddered. This man seemed to be capable of doing such a thing. If she made him unhappy, he didn't even need to do it himself. He could easily crush her with a single finger. Seeing her suddenly fall silent, he coldly denied it. His tone was decisive and straightforward, without even a trace of hesitation. His face was calm and composed, without any unnaturalness or guilt. It didn't look like he was lying at all. Is he really not her boyfriend? Jiang Yutong thought to herself, That's right. If such a handsome man is my sugar daddy, he's so handsome, rich, and elegant. He's like a model from an idol drama. Many people will be jealous of me if I tell them. Jiang Yutong rolled her eyes. Suddenly, she lowered her voice and whispered carefully in her ear, Shishir, that man can't be the mysterious sugar daddy behind you, right? As soon as she finished speaking, Yun Shishir raised her head abruptly. Her pair of clear eyes stared fixedly at her as her brows furrowed slightly. She seemed to have seen through Jiang Yutong's intentions. Chapter 339. Jiang Yutong's heart skipped a beat when she saw her reaction. She covered her mouth in shock. She was right. She murmured in disbelief, It can't be true, right? As she spoke, she tugged at Yun Shishir's sleeve, her eyes burning with excitement. Shishir. I heard from them that the reason why you can get so many resources before your debut is because you have a big sugar daddy supporting you. Are those rumors true? No. Yun Shishir said coldly. Oh, then what's your relationship with me? I asked you a question but you didn't answer me. Do you even consider me as your friend? Jiang Yutong frowned and scolded her impatiently when she saw that she had sealed her mouth so tightly. Yun Shusher's lips curled up coldly as she retorted, ridiculous. When did we become friends? Why don't I know about it? Jiang Yutong was stunned by her cold question. What, she seemed to be a little lonely because of Yun Shusher's indifference. She lowered her eyes and sighed absent-mindedly. I thought, we were friends. She murmured, looking aggrieved and sad. She said bitterly, you're so nice to me. I thought you should treat me as a friend. Yun Shusher was so angry that she laughed. You thought. Your so-called thought is just your wishful thinking. Jiang Yutong was irritated by her straightforward words. Yun Shusher, what do you mean? You make it sound like I'm coveting something from you. Why do you have to be so sarcastic? You've really hurt my heart. Yun Shusher's face curled into a sneer as her lips curled into a mocking smile. Jiang Yutong, what answer do you want from me? Jiang Yutong stared at her blankly. She couldn't help but feel that Yun Shusher was so aggressive. What? I'm asking you now. Why are you silent again? Yun Shusher's lips curled into a smile. Let me ask for you, then. You want to ask me, I'm just a newcomer, how can I be in Director Lin's film? Jiang Yutong's eyes changed. She nodded silently. Suddenly, she realized something and shook her head. That's not what I meant. Yun Shusher smirked and took a step closer to her. Then what do you mean? On what basis can I attend Huan Yu's annual cocktail party? What right do I have to be Heavenly King Gu's female companion? What right do I have to sign a contract with Huan Yu when I just debuted? Is it related to the man you saw just now? Isn't that what you want to ask? Yun Shusher was 1.7 meters tall, while Jiang Yutong was only 1.6 meters tall. The difference in height between them was destined to make Yun Shusher look down on her. Jiang Yutong stared at her, dumbfounded. She clenched her fists tightly and wanted to say something, but she stopped herself. That was what she wanted to ask, but she had asked it so vaguely. She thought that Yun Shusher, who looked dull on the surface, would not be shrewd. She did not expect her to see through her thoughts at a glance. Chapter 340. Behind her, Jiang Yutong froze on the spot with a pale face. Her eyes were filled with hatred. She was also embarrassed. Women were creatures that held grudges. Jiang Yutong swore to herself that she would return the humiliation she suffered in front of Yun Shusher today 100-fold. However, she was a woman of her word. Therefore, when Yun Shusher stepped into the classroom the next day, she was acutely aware of the crowd's judging, speculating, and questioning gazes landing on her. They were as sharp as arrows, making her feel uncomfortable as if she was being pricked by needles. She raised her head and vaguely saw Jiang Yutong looking at her with a deep expression. She was sitting in the corner, staring at her with a gloomy expression, as if she was very appreciative of her current awkward situation. The murmurs made Yun Shusher feel as if she had returned to her days as a student. The moment she stepped into the classroom, she was greeted with the same piercing gazes and scrutiny. From head to toe, from the outside to the inside, it was as if they wanted to dig out every corner of her body. Humans were selfish by nature. When they met something better than themselves, they would be envious, jealous, and even want to destroy it. Jiang Yutong was such a woman. Yun Shusher, on the other hand, preferred peace. She was not overly greedy or ambitious. Most of the time, she just wanted to enjoy the world in peace. She wanted to live and survive peacefully. This kind of peace had accompanied her for almost her entire life. No matter what kind of slander or predicament she faced, she could suppress herself and get through it calmly. This kind of peace might seem lonely or even cold in the eyes of outsiders. However, it was as if her life was destined to be full of misfortune. It was destined to not be peaceful. Yun Shusher pretended to be calm. She hugged her textbook and sat down in her seat. But her carefree attitude caused even more whispered discussions to arise. Buzzing, 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 it was as if innumerable flies were surrounding her and circling around her, disturbing her to the point that her mind was in turmoil. She looked up slightly and glanced at the indifferent faces following the murmurs. Seeing this, those people quickly lowered their heads and pursed their lips. They felt guilty and did not say a word. However, when Yun Shishir lowered her head, the murmurs started again, making her feel extremely anxious. This was terrible. There was no need to think about it. Who was the culprit behind this sudden disturbance? Jiang Yutong must have spread some kind of rumor in the classroom to attract those suspicious gazes. The faces of those who were whispering to each other in private gradually became distorted and hideous in her eyes. They were incomparably hideous and ugly. She could no longer pretend to be calm. She pushed the table angrily and stood up, shouting, "Are you done?" Everyone was stunned. No one expected Yun Shishir, who was usually quiet and even timid, to the point that she was actually angry. For a moment, it was as if the air had frozen. Until Jiang Yutong sneered, "No one is talking about you. What are you thinking? You're deaf, but I'm not." Yun Shishir retorted with a sneer. Jiang Yutong choked for a moment and was speechless. People who looked easy to bully were not easy to bully. Chapter 341. Suddenly, a voice came from the classroom. "You're the only one who's allowed to do it, but we're not allowed to talk about it." "Who's talking?" Yun Shishir's cold gaze swept over. "If you're talking to me, please stand up first and let me see who you are. This is the basic courtesy between people. Who's afraid of you? Do you think you're so great just because you have a sugar daddy to rely on?" In the second row, a pretty girl with a ponytail stood up unhappily. "We're talking about you, so what?" Yun Shishir's eyes narrowed as her lips curled into a cold smirk. Everyone present shuddered inexplicably at this sight. "What are you talking about?" Her voice was very soft and light, but it revealed a sense of coldness. This coldness was not indifferent on the surface, but it was bone-chilling. That ponytailed girl was also a little frightened by her tone and shrunk her shoulders slightly. But when she thought of the dozens of people in the training class who were on the same side as her, she regained some courage and said, "We're talking about how unclean you are and how you use dirty and despicable methods." Yun Shishir's expression did not change. For example, do you still need to ask me about what you've done?" That girl sneered and said, "Yesterday, someone saw a man walking out of your lounge. You're the only one using that lounge, and I don't know who gave you the privilege. That man must be your sugar daddy behind the scenes. I say, although you're a newbie, you have so many resources. You obviously relied on the unspoken rules to get to your position." Her words were laced with sticks and spears, aggressive. Yun Shishir said indifferently, "A woman's jealousy is really scary." "What did you say?" "I'm jealous of you." That girl slammed the table in exasperation and said angrily, "Let me tell you, I've reached this step by relying on myself. Unlike some people who don't walk on the bright path and choose to follow the dirty unspoken rules. Yun Shishir, don't let me get hold of any evidence, or I'll expose you." In a moment of impulse, she said these words. After saying it, that girl suddenly regretted it. Looking at Yun Shishir's cold and disdainful eyes again, it was as if she was mocking her ignorance and childishness. "Do you think everyone is the same as you?" "What do you mean? Are you as pretty as me? Do you have my acting skills? Do you have my aptitude? Only those who aren't capable need to rely on the unspoken rules. But I don't need to." Suddenly, a few mocking laughter could be heard in the classroom. The girl was so embarrassed that her face flushed red. She pushed her desk away and quickly walked up to Yun Shishir. Pointing at her, she said, "B*tch, what's the point of only knowing how to sow discord here? Are you saying that I'm not as pretty as you? Do you with your acting skills? Do I have your aptitude? Where do you?" "I'm too," she said coldly. However, there was no rebuttal in the classroom. Yun Shishir in terms of aptitude, no one in the class could compare to Yun Shishir. There was no room for rebuttal. "Bitch!" That girl flew into a rage out of humiliation and rushed towards Yun Shishir's face with threatening gestures. Chapter 342. Yun Shusher reached out and gently wiped the mark on her neck. With a sharp glint in her eyes, she casually picked up a heavy pencil case from the side and smashed it at her face. The pencil case was made of iron. When it hit the girl's forehead, it broke a layer of skin and blood oozed out. No one in the training class expected the situation to go out of control. They were all stunned. The ponytailed girl clutched her forehead in pain and retreated a few steps in a sorry state. Looking at the blood stain on her hand, her face flushed red in an instant. Feeling wronged and unbearable, her eyes reddened. Losing her rationality, she picked up a stool from the side and hurled it at Yun Shusher. There were a few exclamations and attempts to dissuade her. However, her movements were too fast. There was no time to stop her. In the blink of an eye, the stool hit Yun Shusher. Yun Shusher couldn't dodge in time and was hit by the stool. She staggered and fell to the ground. At the same time, a thunderous roar came from the door. "What are you doing?" Everyone looked over and saw the deputy artistic director, Zheng Yun, standing at the door angrily. His eyes were fixed on the stool in the ponytailed girl's hand. The veins on his forehead were bulging. What surprised everyone even more was that Huanyu Entertainment's top manager, Qin Zhou, was standing behind him. Beside him was the famous Heavenly King, Gu Xingze. The newcomer training class would usually invite famous artists to teach the newcomers. In the past, Gu Xingze never participated in the newcomer training class. Even when Ji Yanluo personally invited him, Gu Xingze dismissed him with a look of disinterest. This time, he didn't know what possessed him, but he actually said that he wanted to come with Qin Zhou to the newcomer training class. Qin Zhou was one of the instructors of the newcomer training class. He cursed in his heart. This guy just came back from Milan Fashion Week. When he got off the plane, he found out that Yun Shusher was in the newcomer training class. He took the initiative to come and listen to how he teaches the newcomers. Listen to his lecture. Who are you kidding? He's obviously worried about a certain woman. However, before they could enter the classroom, they heard the commotion from afar and hurried over. Obviously, they had clearly seen the scene in the classroom just now. The ponytailed girl didn't expect them to suddenly appear. She only cursed in her heart. She was so impulsive that she forgot where she was. She hurriedly put down the weapon in her hand and stood there helplessly. Her face was in a daze, and she didn't dare to believe what she had done when she lost her mind. "What are you doing?" Zheng Yun stepped forward, and just as he was about to lash out, a light breeze blew past him. When everyone came back to their senses, they saw that Gu Xingze had actually walked to Yun Shusher's side with a nervous expression. He bent down slightly and crouched down, holding up her wrist with some heartache. Earlier when that young lady had swung the stool towards her, she had instinctively stretched out her arm to block it. On her pure white arm, a thick bruise had instantly appeared. In Gu Xingze's eyes, he couldn't hide the pain in his heart. He carefully touched the wound, causing Yun Shusher to frown. "Does it hurt?" he asked nervously. Yun Shusher shook her head and gritted her teeth. "It doesn't hurt." "You're still saying it doesn't hurt?" Gu Xingze knew her well. No matter how painful it was, she would try her best to endure it. Seeing the cold sweat on her forehead oozing uncontrollably, Gu Xingze suddenly raised his head. A dangerous glint flashed across his cold eyes. "Who hurt you?" There was a strange silence in the classroom. The dead silence was suffocating. Chapter 343. Who hurt her? He was at the back of the group, so he did not see what happened just now. When he stood at the door, Yun Shusher had already fallen to the ground. Beside her, a ponytailed girl was holding a stool in her hand, standing there in a daze. There was a strange silence in the classroom. Everyone was frozen in place, and no one dared to make a sound. This was the first time they saw Gu Xingze's real face. In the past, they mostly saw the image of the Heavenly King on the television screen. Sometimes he was arrogant, sometimes he was cold, and sometimes he was gentle. This was everyone's first time seeing Gu Xingze's real face. Compared to his image on the screen, he was more noble and handsome, as if he was born naturally. However, at this moment, his body exuded a bone-chilling coldness. His eyes were cold and terrifying. It was as if he could kill someone with a single glance. No one dared to move, or even make a sound. Even the sound of their breathing was carried out quietly, for fear of angering the man in front of them. Who hurt her? Gu Xingze questioned her coldly again. His powerful voice reverberated in the huge classroom, numbing everyone's nerves. Someone pointed weakly at the ponytailed girl standing by the podium and whispered, It's Lu Yi. Whoosh, everyone's gaze immediately fell on Lu Yi's body. Lu Yi was so shocked that she took a step back. Her back was against the blackboard, and she could not avoid it for a moment. Her shoulders trembled, and she finally mustered up the courage to argue, It's not me, it's Yun Shishir, she was the one who attacked me first. As she spoke, as if she was grasping at a thin life-saving straw, she kept showing Gu Xingze the wound on her forehead that was still bleeding. She said pitifully, Look, she hit me and left this. She hit me first, so I hit her back. I was just defending myself. No one spoke, and no one testified. At this moment, everyone remained silent, and no one dared to speak. In fact, no one saw that it was Yun Shishir who made the first move. Instead, it was Lu Yi who made the first move and hurt Yun Shishir. Then, Yun Shishir fought back. Every training room was equipped with surveillance cameras. Once they checked the records, the truth would be revealed. Therefore, no one dared to get involved in this mess. Jiang Yutong was also stunned, completely dumbfounded. Like many young girls, she had a Prince Charming in her heart. Gu Xingze had been in the entertainment industry for many years. With his handsome appearance and solid acting skills, he had captured a considerable number of fans, and Jiang Yutong was one of them. She deeply admired Gu Xingze. He was the only national idol in her heart. Although there were many new stars in the entertainment industry, no one could replace Gu Xingze's position. However, at this moment, she saw the man of her dreams hugging Yun Shishir's shoulders lovingly. His eyes were filled with tenderness as he inquired about her well-being. The doting look in his eyes could hardly be concealed as it overflowed like a river. She stared at him, dumbfounded. Her heart was filled with mixed feelings. Bitterness, jealousy, and most of all, jealousy. Jealousy, how could she not be jealous? If Gu Xingze could speak to her gently, she would be so happy that she would go crazy. But the idol in her heart was holding another woman, and this woman was the one she hated the most. Why? Chapter 344. Why was it Yun Shishir? She wished that the person lying in his arms right now was her, not Yun Shishir, who had used underhanded means to climb up the social ladder. Gu Xingze raised his head coldly and glared at Lu Yi expressionlessly. He suddenly said coldly, Huanyu Entertainment will not sign a contract with a trainee who causes trouble. Everyone was in an uproar as soon as he finished speaking. Gu Xingze's short sentence completely cut off Lu Yi's path to stardom. Gu Xingze was one of the major shareholders of Huanyu Entertainment. He held 1/5 of Huanyu's shares, so his orders were naturally powerful. It was not inferior to a ban order. This huge Huanyu corporation could be considered half of his world. If he wanted to expel a trainee, it was just a matter of moving his mouth. It was not difficult. However, Lu Yi had spent a lot of effort to get into Huanyu's training class. This opportunity was very precious. If she missed it, there would not be a second time. If she could successfully graduate from the training class, she would be able to debut. Debut, how many people dreamed of it? But he had removed her from the class with a simple sentence. This meant that she would be permanently frozen in Huanyu. That was too cruel. Yun Shishir's eyes flashed slightly. Her gaze fell on the helpless Lu Yi, but she did not say anything. Lu Yi opened her mouth in shock. Her eyes were filled with fear and shock. What? What do you mean? Please get out. You have lost the right to sign a contract and debut. Gu Xingze's thin lips parted slightly. His tone was frosty. Everyone was stunned, including Jiang Yutong. She was Gu Xing's hardcore fan, so she knew that as a shareholder of Huanyu, he had a lot of power in his hands. But she did not expect that he would ban someone for Yun Shishir. The training class was silent for a long time. Gu Xingze didn't say anything else. He bent down and carefully pulled Yun Shishir into his arms, lifting her up easily. His every movement was so careful, as if he was afraid of hurting her, as if he was treating an extremely fragile treasure. Lu Yi said unwillingly, "Heavenly King Gu, I'm your fan. In my heart, only a noble and elegant woman is worthy of your status. This woman is not worthy of you." Gu Xingze ignored her indifferently and was about to leave the classroom with Yun Shishir in his arms. Lu Yi rushed forward and grabbed his arm. "Don't you know? She relied on the unspoken rules to get to her position." "Let go," he warned in a cold voice. His cold gaze was like a sharp sword, shooting at the back of her hand. Lu Yi was frightened by his gaze and took a step back. However, she finally gathered her courage and cried, "Since you want to fire me, then please give me a satisfactory explanation. Yun Shishir is also a student of the training class. She has already signed a contract with Huanyu. I remember that the contract states very clearly. During the contract, she can't be in a relationship. Otherwise, it's a breach of contract. Yesterday, someone saw a man entering and leaving her lounge. She obviously relied on dirty means to get to her position. Why does she have special treatment?" "Shut up." Lu Yi did not care about his warning. If she lost the right to sign a contract, Yun Shishir would not have an easy time either. Chapter 345. "This has nothing to do with you." Gu Xingze could not be bothered to listen to her explanation and left with Yun Shishir in his arms. Qin Zhou's expression changed slightly when he saw Gu Xingze leave. He instructed Jing Yun to tidy up the situation and left in a hurry. Gu Xingze brought Yun Shishir to his studio on the 30th floor of Huanyu Tower. Gu Xingze's studio occupied a total of 500 square meters of floor space. The entire floor was his world. When the elevator door opened, a simple yet luxurious living room came into view. The private doctor was already waiting in the living room. Qin Zhou had hurriedly contacted the private doctor in Huanyu Tower just now. Gu Xingze placed Yun Shishir on the single bed behind the screen and turned around. "Come and take a look at her." The doctor observed Gu Xingze's expression and saw how nervous he was. He knew how important this woman was to him, so he did not dare to neglect her. Yun Shishir allowed the private doctor to examine her and concluded that it was just a light bruise. After some simple treatment, she would recover in a few days. Gu Xingze's stiff and cold expression finally relaxed. "Thank you, Gu Xingze," Yun Shishir said gratefully from the bottom of her heart. She did not mention a word about what happened in the classroom just now. Qin Zhou saw that Yun Shishir was fine. He was a discerning person, so he quickly left with the doctor. Bang! The elevator door closed and the living room fell silent. Gu Xingze slowly sat on the side of the bed and looked up at her. He asked softly, "Does it hurt?" His expression was careful, as if she was a precious and fragile object in his eyes. If he did not take good care of her, she would break easily. Yun Shishir shook her head. "It doesn't hurt anymore. You're putting on a brave front." Gu Xingze lowered his eyes and looked a little helpless. "I used my hand to block it. I'm not injured anywhere else. It's just a light bruise on my arm. It will be fine after some time," said Yun Shishir. After she finished speaking, there was a long silence. It was so quiet that it felt a little awkward. Both of them had their own thoughts and did not speak to each other. Just as he was about to speak, Qin Zhou suddenly called. He immediately looked a little impatient. He picked up the phone and said coldly, "You better have something urgent." Qin Zhou's lips twitched. "It's like this. Ji Lin wants to meet you for dinner. Bring Yun Shishir." "I'm not going. Her arm was injured." "How could she go?" "It's about the movie." Let's meet another day. I can't. The producers and investors are all there. Your brother is there too. Gu, could it be because of Yang Shoucheng? Gu Xingze was slightly stunned. He was absent-minded for a moment. Then, he hung up the phone and stood up. You rest here first. Yun Shishir quickly stood up as well. It's okay. I can go with you. Her hearing was very good. Gu Xingze did not avoid her when he answered the phone. She could vaguely hear that Qin Zhou wanted her to go too. Gu Xingze looked at her helplessly. His eyes were filled with tenderness and heartache. Be a good girl. Although it was a short word, his face was overflowing with love and affection. It made it impossible for her to resist. Gu Jinglian was an extremely dangerous person. He did not want Yun Shishir to appear in an event where he was present. Yun Shishir compromised. Okay. Gu Xingze was relieved. However, just as he was about to turn and leave, Yun Shishir quickly followed him and gently tugged at the corner of his shirt. I'd better go with you. What if it's something important? Gu Xingze pondered for a moment and finally nodded. Okay, then you listen to my arrangements. Chapter 346. At night, the wind was bone-chilling. The location of the appointment was Palace, Private Clubhouse. Palace, Private Clubhouse, was located in the bustling Longchuan Manor. The scenery was unique and it was far away from the hustle and bustle of the city. It was a rare and peaceful place. 100 years ago, this place was densely packed with aristocratic mansions. The Gu family, which had 100 years of history, was also from an aristocratic family. With the passing of time, this piece of land had become the most desired and unattainable place for the common people in the capital. However, on this piece of land where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, the Gu family's old mansion occupied a considerable amount of land. The Gu family was the #1 aristocratic family in the underworld and was ranked first among the 3 major families in the capital. Even now, after 100 years of prosperity and decline, the Gu family was still a powerful family in the underworld. The Gu clan was in existence that controlled half of the entire underworld. The other clans were wary of them, and they had once enjoyed a period of glory. 15 years ago, there was an internal strife within the Gu family. In order to fight for the position of the head of the family, the direct descendants and the collateral descendants fought until their heads were broken and blood was spilled. Because of this, the Gu family declined for a period of time. Because of this, the Gu family had once fallen apart in 10 years. The bloodline of the Gu family was extremely weak. In the early years, the Gu family's position was unstable and the 2 children of the head of the Gu family, Gu Liancheng, were assassinated. Later on, he had a son. Other than Gu Jinglian, the eldest son, Gu Liancheng also had a concubine son, Gu Xingze. A concubine's son. The so-called concubine's son was Gu Liancheng's illegitimate son. Gu Jinglian was the son of Gu Liancheng's first wife and was the rightful successor. However, Gu Jinglian's personality had always been arrogant. He was young and arrogant and was a typical hedonistic second generation. Although Gu Xingze was younger than Gu Jinglian by 5 years, he was deeply loved by Gu Liancheng. However, in the 100 years of the Gu family's history, there had never been a concubine's son who became the head of the family. Even if Gu Liancheng wanted to help him become the head of the family, the elders of the Gu family would probably oppose it. To the century-old underworld families, the distinction between direct descendants and concubines was very particular. The son of a concubine was a son of a concubine. He could not see the light of day. In the car, Gu Xingze stared coldly at the passing scenery outside the window. His identity had always been a shady one. He had never even stepped into the Gu family with a proper identity. When Gu Liancheng passed away more than a decade ago, Gu Xingze was only 10 years old. Gu Jinglian called him to his side and gave him a bank card and a plane ticket to a foreign country. This was the first time the 2 brothers had met, but it was also a farewell. At that time, Gu Jinglian had already successfully inherited the position of the head of the Gu family. Naturally, he could not tolerate any provocation. Gu Jinglian stood in the study and spoke to him briefly and straightforwardly. You don't have to work so hard in school. You don't have to work too hard to further your studies abroad. As the bastard son of the Gu family, you don't need to pursue any dreams at all. You only need to know how to squander and enjoy life. After all, I will give you an inexhaustible wealth in this lifetime. Gu Jinglian's evil face was full of mockery. I should have gotten rid of you, but my father left a will before he died. For his sake, sending you abroad is my last mercy. However, you have to remember that the position of the head of the Gu family belongs to me in the end. His words were cold and explicit. If it were not for Gu Lianqing's will before he died, Gu Jinglian would not have tolerated his existence. Going abroad was just another way for him to live. It was not until 10 years ago that he was pardoned and regained the right to set foot on this land. Chapter 347. The car slowly stopped at the private clubhouse. After settling Yun Shishir in the hall, Gu Xingze hurried to the VIP room. Yun Shishir planned to wait for him in the hall. She waited for a long time. Not long after, Li Lan walked in with a briefcase. As soon as she walked into the hall, she caught a glimpse of a beautiful figure sitting alone in the corner. She couldn't help but take a second look. She was surprised to find that it was Yun Shishir, so she walked over with a smile. Yun Shishir was sitting quietly on the sofa, reading a magazine in her hand. From afar, her slender figure looked so thin, but under the light, there was an indescribable tranquility and beauty. Li Lan was a little surprised to see her here. She sighed inwardly again and walked to the sofa. Li Lan sat down beside her and gently nudged her. Perhaps the movement was too abrupt, but she, who was immersed in her book, was a little startled. Her shoulders couldn't help but tremble, and she came back to her senses. She looked up and saw that it was Li Lan. Her eyes couldn't help but be a little confused. Li Lan smiled and asked, "Why are you here?" "Ah." Yun Shishir looked at her in confusion and didn't react. "Why are you here?" "I just finished work and came over for dinner." "What about you?" Yun Shishir was stunned. She was a little absent-minded for a moment. She turned to look out of the window and realized that it was already dark. She also realized that her empty stomach was a little hungry. She realized that she hadn't eaten for the whole day. Thinking of this, her stomach let out a painful groan. Yun Shishir felt embarrassed. Li Lan heard it and smiled. "Are you hungry? Let's have dinner together." She nodded slowly. Suddenly, she thought of something. Where's Muyaja? Is he busy? Probably. The CEO's schedule is always unpredictable. I'm not sure. Li Lan paused and said, "Why are you looking for him?" Yun Shishir suddenly remembered that Muyaja left without saying goodbye yesterday. She was a little angry, so she shook her head calmly. Suddenly, she forced a smile and said, "I'm hungry. I want to eat something." It seemed that she was so hungry that her stomach growled as soon as she finished speaking. She hurriedly covered her stomach, feeling a little embarrassed. Li Lan, who was sharp enough to notice this, laughed. "Looks like you're really starving." Yun Shishir's cheeks were a little red. She couldn't help but feel aggrieved. Why was Gu Xingze was gone for so long? She hadn't eaten for a day. Li Lan smiled and asked, "Then what do you want to eat?" "I'll take you to eat." As she said that, she didn't forget to add, "Don't worry, whatever you want to eat, we have it all. And I'll definitely satisfy you." The CEO had repeatedly ordered her to do whatever she wanted, no matter how big or small. Naturally, Muyaja had specially instructed her to do so. Yun Shishir suddenly remembered that she had been thinking about Chinese food. Usually, she was so busy that Yu was in charge of all 3 meals a day. Now that he wasn't at home, she actually missed his cooking. Hence, she missed it very much. Thinking of this, she moved her lips and said greedily, "I want to eat Chinese food." Li Lan smiled. Of course, she could satisfy such a small request. Chapter 348. Yun Shishir sent a text message to Gu Xingze and left with Li Lan. The palace was a high-end place for dining, leisure, and entertainment. It had a KTV, a bar, a gym, and a cafe. Whether it was working or holding a meeting, all kinds of food, drink, and entertainment could be done here. The Chinese restaurant at the palace was very famous. The decoration was elegant, and the signboard was naturally linked to the restaurant's reputation. On average, even if there were only 2 or 3 dishes, it would cost a few hundred to 1,000 yuan. Even so, it was still very popular. Therefore, if one did not make a reservation, it would be very difficult to get a seat. Moreover, it was the peak period for dining, and the flow of customers was fierce. However, for Li Lan, making a reservation was a matter of course. After making an appointment, the store manager specially arranged a small private room with an elegant environment for them. The elegant lighting, glass windows, and bead curtains gave the room a very classical charm. Yun Shishir did not have a big appetite, but now she was extremely hungry. Looking at the delicious dishes on the menu, she felt even more hungry just by looking at the tempting appearance. The hungrier she was, the more reckless she was. She wanted to eat everything she saw. In the end, she unknowingly ordered a table full of dishes. Looking at the delicious dishes presented one after another, Yun Shishir pinched her chopsticks and felt a little guilty. Earlier, she glanced at the prices. Just one dish was around a few hundred yuan. With so many dishes, it would be impossible to fill the table without a few thousand yuan. Li Lan was also a little surprised. She looked at the table full of dishes in a daze. Her hand holding the chopsticks was a little stiff. She laughed and asked, "Are you really that hungry?" Yun Shishir was also a little distressed. Li Lan had eaten some snacks before work, so she did not feel very hungry. Moreover, she did not have a greedy appetite. After a few bites, she felt full and began to put food on Li Lan's plate. Yun Shishir ate with relish. This Chinese restaurant was indeed worthy of being its #1 signature. The exquisite dishes were indeed delicious, making one greedy for more. Moreover, she was indeed hungry. Now that she was in front of Li Lan, she did not care about her reserved image. She was very focused on eating. Before she knew it, more than half of the food on the table was gone. Li Lan just looked at her like this. Just looking at her like this was pleasing to the eye. This was probably what they meant by a feast for the eyes. No matter what a beautiful person did, it was a kind of pleasure to watch them. Before the soup was served, she raised her head and put down her chopsticks. The tip of her pink tongue gently curled the corners of her lips, as if she had not had enough, but also seemed to be satisfied. There was a kind of cute naivety in her eyes. Li Lan couldn't help but smile. She handed over the handkerchief and asked softly, "Are you full?" Yun Shishir nodded and took the handkerchief from her. She carefully wiped her mouth and subconsciously touched her slightly bulging belly. It was no wonder that the cost of food here was so high. The food was indeed delicious. If her appetite was big enough, she was confident that she could finish a whole table. She greedily glanced at the silver fish soup that the waiter had served again. She was a little reluctant to part with it, but she really couldn't eat any more. She helplessly sighed, raised her head, and asked softly, "Can I take all of this away?" "Of course, as long as you want." Li Lan said again, "If you like the taste of this restaurant, I'll bring you here next time." Chapter 349. Only then did Yun Shishir reveal a satisfied smile. "It's getting late. Shishir, let's go back." Yun Shishir didn't show any disgust when Li Lan addressed her intimately. In her heart, she already had a good impression of Li Lan. Hence, she didn't reject Li Lan's affectionate nickname for her. She nodded, stood up, and followed Li Lan out. Just as they walked out of the private room, they bumped into a well-dressed middle-aged man in the corridor. Li Lan's eyes were sharp. She recognized him at a glance. Out of courtesy, she quickly greeted him with a smile. Isn't this Mr. Qian? What a coincidence to meet you here." This middle-aged man was none other than Qian Xiaohua, the investor who was working with Huanyu Entertainment this time. It was also him who had invested heavily in Huanyu's next movie. He was also a famous big boss in Beijing. Hence, out of courtesy, she took the initiative to greet him. Qian Xiaohua also recognized her. He laughed and said, "Ha! Assistantly. Nice to meet you. I didn't expect to meet you here. Why, aren't you with your Mr. Mu?" Li Lan reached out and shook his hand. She was about to answer. However, she saw the man's gaze turn and look straight at Yun Shishir, who was standing behind her with an expressionless face. Qian Xiaohua's eyes widened slightly. There was surprise in his eyes, but more than that, there was a sigh of admiration. This girl was really beautiful. At first glance, she was already a celestial being. Her existence even brought light to this dimly lit corridor. Perhaps his gaze was too intense, or perhaps it was his gaze that was unique and invasive. Yun Shishir came back to her senses and followed his gaze. Instantly, she felt a little uncomfortable from the piercing gaze and unconsciously hid behind Li Lan. However, her dodging action, in his eyes, suddenly became a different kind of feeling. She seemed to be shy. It was no wonder that she would be shy. Regardless of whether it was her dressing or her mannerisms, she looked very young and inexperienced. Putting aside her innocent tone, just her tender and beautiful little face was enough to make his heart itch. This girl was somewhat to his liking. It wasn't as if Qian Xiaohua had never played with women before. He was the pride of the business world and an investor in the entertainment industry. He had been in the industry for many years and could be said to have traveled among the flowers. With his successful status, he would play with women very fiercely. It wasn't that he hadn't played with innocent girls and schoolgirls before. He had played with plenty of them. But in this era of material desires, how could there be true innocence? They were all pretentious and delicate in order to become famous. At first, he felt that they were a little interesting and charming, but after a long time, most of them were exactly the same. It was inevitable that he would find them boring and annoying. Thus, as he sized her up, his gaze became even more indifferent and deep. He was like a hunter that had locked onto his target, and his eyes were filled with ambition and possessiveness. Li Lan looked at his bright eyes, and the smile on his lips stiffened little by little. At the same time, he felt a little embarrassed. Chapter 350. At that moment, how could she not know what Qian Xiaohua was thinking? That look in his eyes, that undisguised desire to plunder on his face, all showed that this man was scheming something in his heart. Li Lan secretly thought that this man must have taken a fancy to the little girl behind her at first glance. According to the past rules, if she were to bring an artist out and encounter such a situation, she would definitely promote it to Qian Xiaohua. After all, it was a great honor for an artist in her company to be fancied by this man. To be able to climb to a high branch overnight, like a sparrow flying to a branch to become a phoenix, that was naturally a great thing. Who would reject it? Of course, those girls who stepped into this circle for fame and fortune would be extremely happy. In the vanity market, sending women to those big bosses for entertainment could be considered an unspoken rule. However, now, his target was Yun Shishir, and this was not allowed. Thus, she subconsciously stood in front of Yun Shishir, carefully protecting her, and at the same time blocking Qian Xiaohua's line of sight. This man then came back to his senses, still absent-mindedly glancing behind her from time to time, with a deep smile on his face. "Mr. Qian, why are you staring at her like that? Don't scare her." Li Lan smiled and said half-jokingly. Before becoming Mu Yage's assistant, she was born as a manager of the public relations department. In terms of communication, dealing with and negotiating with some clients was naturally easy and handy. In terms of speaking, she was especially good. Just this funny sentence alone was enough to slightly calm the somewhat stiff atmosphere. Qian Xiaohua was also considered an experienced businessman. He had been at the wine table for many years, saying one thing in front of others and another behind others. In his heart, he had lived half his life and never taken off the mask on his face. Naturally, his ability to speak and read people's expressions was also top-notch. He could also see that this Li Lan seemed to have the intention of protecting her. Thinking about it, this girl's identity was not ordinary. Could it be that she was the daughter of some family? A socialite from the upper class? However, it did not look like it. It was not because of anything else. It was just that this girl did not have the arrogance and brashness that people in this circle should have. Instead, she had an air of arrogance about her. However, this arrogance was the kind that was ingrained in his bones. He was stubborn and determined. Moreover, the clothes she was wearing did not look like those of an aristocratic family's daughter. They were all simple designs. One had to know that all socialites from aristocratic families dressed extravagantly. Therefore, he rejected this idea. Since he didn't have any background, there was nothing to worry about. He had taken a fancy to this girl. This girl is so pretty. Qian Shaohua praised from the bottom of his heart. Then, he smiled and looked at Yun Shishir with an inquisitive look. Which family are you from? TSK, why haven't I seen it before? Oh, this girl, Li Lan smiled. Although she was in a difficult position, she still smiled and introduced, this is an artist signed by Chairman Mu himself. She's a very talented newcomer. But I haven't officially debuted yet. Once I officially debut, I'll have to ask for your help, CEO Qian. Chapter 351. She had deliberately emphasized the words Chairman Mu and personally. The meaning behind her words was already unclear. However, Qian Shaohua was also very stubborn. Once he set his eyes on a woman, his determination would not be shaken even by thunder. Hey, don't mention it. Ha! Of course, I can't not support Master Mu. He smiled and said a few more polite words. Then, he looked at Yun Shishir meaningfully. The latter was obviously not used to his almost bone-piercing gaze, so she avoided Li Lan's gaze even more. She really didn't like this man looking at her as if he wanted to devour her completely. Noticing that she was avoiding his gaze, Li Lan's smile remained unchanged. However, she was slightly nervous. She couldn't help but secretly criticize the man in front of her. It was really difficult to deal with this man in front of her. Although she was Mu Yaja's assistant, Qian Shaohua's prominent status was there, so she couldn't appear too strong. After all, she was just a small assistant. She had to be very careful with her words in front of a big shot. However, if she was to be more tactful, this old man was really cunning. He deliberately misunderstood her meaning and wanted to avoid her. He was determined to get Yun Shishir. However, if she insisted on Mu Yaja's face and rejected him, she was afraid that it would hurt the harmony between them. It didn't matter. The key was that Chairman Mu was now cooperating with him, and this cooperation was not a small matter. They had invested in a blockbuster film. Now that everything had been finalized, they only lacked one thing. If something like this happened halfway, she would have to bear the consequences. Moreover, she really couldn't understand Mu Yaja's thoughts. It was difficult for her to guess at the moment whether this Yun Shishir was important to Chairman Mu or not. If she called and asked in front of him, she wouldn't give him a way out. If Chairman Mu didn't respond, he would blame her for not doing things properly. She wouldn't be pleasing either side. It was a dilemma. Now, Li Lan, who had been through a lot, was also trapped in the current situation. It was extremely difficult for her. In all honesty, she wanted to protect her. After all, he had fallen into the hands of this old fox. After being toyed with like this, he was afraid that he would not have a good ending. Regardless of anything else, for this little girl, half of her life would be ruined. She could tell that this girl had a strong sense of self-esteem. It was already difficult for her to stay by Chairman Mu's side. Not to mention this fat old man. Just by looking at her evasive expression, he could roughly guess her reaction. She definitely wouldn't agree no matter what. But how should she deal with this man? Young Master Mu, you have good taste. Speaking of which, this little girl, Qian Shaohua said with a smile as he approached Yun Shishir. She was shocked and quickly retracted her hand. Her body dodged to the side as she stared at him with extreme vigilance. She looked like a frightened kitten as all the hair on her body stood on end. Her brows were filled with a thick hostility. Although she didn't know what this man had in mind for her, she sharply discovered a terrifying ambition in his eyes. This ambition was exactly the same as He Lingxiang's when he looked at her. She didn't want this man to touch her at all. Even if it was just a strand of hair, she didn't want him to touch her. Chairman Qian didn't know whether to laugh or cry.